across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, it's an extra few minutes. One minute past 6, lovely to have your company. I tell you something, it's very much live radio and live broadcasting. Let's bring down that music just a tad. Thank you so much, Amy. Good morning. This is Morning Glory. It's 1 minute past 6, and we didn't have the news bulletin. I'm glad, because you know why? What it means is more Dolan. More common sense, more charm. Listen, folks, lovely to have your company. We have got so much to get through in the next 4 hours. Rupert Lowe is up. I don't know if you saw him on X, but he said made the most amazing post, right? His manifesto for a better Britain. What a great Prime Minister he would make. Well, Rupert Lowe is up at later in the show. We've got so many stories to get through. Tomorrow's front pages. 2 days and 2 U-turns, having broken manifesto promises not to increase taxes on working Brits. Keir Starmer tears up Angela Rayner's workers' rights bill following an outcry from industry. Just who is running Britain? Labour backbenchers, the unions? It's certainly not the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, who is surely on borrowed time. My priority for the next 4 hours is to get your opinions on the national television and radio airwaves. My phone number is 0344 499 1000. And Tommy's on the phones this morning, and what a lovely chap he is. He's got energy, he's got zeal. In fact, he's one of the many young people deserting the country. This horrific socialist experiment is playing out very badly, and it turns out that many of our youngest and finest are leaving the country, whilst asylum represents over half of those people settling in the country every year. Surely this can't go on. You can text the word TALK and your message to 87222. Or you can leave a voice note, which is always a popular thing. You can hear us on the radio. You can watch us on TV. Just head to YouTube, search for Talk, and up we pop. A very big 4 hours to come. As the saying goes, let's talk. And at 3 minutes past 6, may I wish all of you a happy Friday. Your weekend starts here, and lots of stories to get through. Let's have a look at tomorrow's front pages. The Sun newspaper. We can lose the old pop music now, if you don't mind, Amy. Thank you so much. The Sun, £30 billion tax grab fallout. Britain's being fleeced by my niece. Even Rachel's uncle hates the budget. Rachel Reeves' budget was last night blasted as a bonanza for benefit claimants by critics, including her own uncle. Terry Smith joined a long line of detractors after the Chancellor announced a £30 billion tax bomb, putting skivers ahead of strivers. The Times newspaper, stealth taxes mean dismal living standards, say economists. Day one protection of workers abandoned is the other headline story of the day. Sir Keir Starmer is facing a revolt from Labour MPs after abandoning a manifesto pledge to give workers the right to claim unfair dismissal from day one, a policy championed by Angela Rayner. Ministers ditched the move to end the qualifying period for unfair dismissal, currently set at 2 years, in an attempt to get the government's controversial workers' rights legislation through the House of Lords. Workers will instead have to be in their job for at least 6 months to qualify. Putin dashes peace hopes with call for Kyiv retreat is the other headline. Daily Mail. The brain drain from Starmer's socialist chaos. Britain is facing a new brain drain that threatens to add to the pain of Rachel Reeves' disastrous budget. Official figures yesterday revealed an exodus of young Britons, while asylum seekers now make up for nearly half of net migration. Brilliant, isn't it? What a clown show. What a hot mess this is. The Daily Express, terminally ill, criticised Lord's amendments that could derail assisted dying law. Your delay is stealing precious time and choice. This is an exclusive from the Express. Every unnecessary delay to the assisted dying bill is stealing precious time and choice, terminally ill campaigners told peers. Daily Mirror now. Fresh clue to 1999 murder. Dando cops Serbian hitman probe. Interesting, isn't it? with all of the terrible, terrible headlines around the economy and this awful, disastrous government, the Mirror, which is more or less the in-house newsletter of the Labour Party, decides to go for a completely different story that no one's talking about. Can't imagine why. The I newspaper, Labour U-turn on workers' rights as PM denies budget tax rises, break a promise. Well, we know that Rachel Reeves is a liar. She's a proven liar. She's a liar. She's not an honest person. And neither is Sir Keir Starmer, who said, oh, no, we will not put up taxes on working people. Well, what about the Nix tax rate in the Halloween budgets, which was passed down onto working people? And what about yesterday or 2 days ago, the egregious budget statement on Wednesday in which 1 million more people dragged into the higher rate of tax? That is a tax on working people. The pair of them are deeply, deeply dishonest and politically are not long for this world. The Daily Telegraph, Starmer rips up Rayner's rights bill and young people flee Labour's high tax Britain. Also, electric car drivers face yearly mileage checks demonstrating that they're neither saving the planet nor any money by buying one of those white elephant vehicles that have got no range, that are expensive to repair. What a joke. I detest electric cars. I detest them. And when I'm in a position to purchase a new car, I'll buy a petrol and I'll buy it with pleasure. Financial Times, Labour dilutes flagship workers' rights bill following pressure from business. And The Guardian, ministers ditch manifesto pledge for job protection from day one. Let me get reaction to the big stories of the day from the one and only Charlie Rowley, who is a political commentator, former special advisor to Michael Gove, I think.
It is, yes. Good morning.
He's a very clever man.
Yes.
I heard a funny story about him years ago.
Did you?
Yeah, when he was a teenager, a friend of mine is a TV producer and they grew up together in Aberdeen. Mm-hmm. And some girl, he was sort of around his teenage years, and some girl went around to Michael Gove's house and said, oh, I'm here to go for a walk with Michael. And he shouted down from upstairs, no, I'm reading a book. And he's read a few books since then, hasn't he?
He has. He's an avid reader. But you're right. I had the title of special advisor to Michael Gove, but I have to tell you, I neither felt special or gave any kind of advice because he was brilliant. He knew what he was doing.
He's a bright man. Well, listen, you know what you're doing too, and so do the young people fleeing Labour's high-tax Britain, Charlie. Young workers are fleeing Labour's high-tax Britain with under 35s leading a near-record exodus. A net 110,000 British people aged 16 to 34 emigrated in the year to March, according to the Office for National Statistics, accounting for 2/3 of all departing Britons. I'm absolutely down with pensioners leaving and heading for the sunshine of Andalusia in southern Spain. It's a deep worry when 20 and 25-year-olds are leaving our shores.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And why are they leaving? Because they know if they stay in the UK, if they have a job or able to make any kind of progress through their careers, they're going to get taxed. They're going to get clobbered with income tax, whether it's through increase in pay through their career, climbing the career ladder, but they're getting dragged into the higher rate of tax or through that tax threshold. So income tax itself might not be going up, as the Chancellor said that she wasn't going to do, but this is all semantics. Your income tax has gone up. You are going to get taxed on your income, just as national insurance contributions, as you're absolutely saying there before, when what was the Halloween horror budget of last year, it's now the nightmare before Christmas it was dubbed this year, because taxes have just gone up and up and up. And young people are seeing that. They're going to see that their income is going to be taxed more and over and above than other countries, and that's why people are deciding to up sticks and leave.
And then there's a tax that everyone's paying that was barely mentioned in the budget on Wednesday, and that's inflation. And all of Rachel Reeves' measures are inflationary, whether it's increasing the minimum wage, whether it's public sector payouts, whether it's higher taxes, it's more borrowing. It's just going to spike inflation, which is a tax on everyone.
Exactly. When your wages go up, your taxes will go up. That's just how it works into this budget. But when inflation goes up as well, that means you've got a higher cost to the living, your day-to-day spending. But if you're on benefits, if your inflation goes up, your benefits go up. And who's paying for that? The hard-working people of this country, the very people that this government said that they weren't going to...
Well, those on benefits are the only constituency in the budget on Wednesday that got a pay rise.
Yes, exactly. And that is why people will be so incensed, and that's why day 2 now, I think it is, I've been up over the last.
Have you had much sleep?
Doing all kinds of.
Getting another coffee.
Yeah, doing all kinds of.
Rolly's on the ropes. Look at you. He's dribbling, actually.
That's just because I'm here at talkTV.
You know, even that tattoo of Michael Gove on your chest is faded slightly.
Yes, that fake. The tattoo. Look, all this kinds of analysis that's been going on about the budget. The reason why it's taking on a day 2, day 3 story is because people are starting to see that without any kind of reform to welfare, there was no mention of reform in the welfare budget. She could have easily said, I'm going to lift the 2-child benefit cap, and we could have a huge debate about whether that's right or wrong, but she could have justified it by saying, I'm going to alleviate poverty, child poverty, for about 450,000 young people. So I'm lifting that 2-child benefit cap. But what I'm also going to do is make sure that I'm going to stop those 3,000 plus people a day that are signing on because of anxiety, or because of, I can't go to work, or because I've got a few sort of mental health problems. Mental health itself is obviously a big issue, and that needs to be diagnosed properly by a GP, as it should be. But you can't just claim, oh, I've got anxiety, or I've got, some ADHD or some form undiagnosed, self-diagnosed, whatever people are doing, in order to claim benefits. That's why the welfare bill has ballooned, and without any kind of reform to that side, there's no way you can start spending. And that's what she's done. She's turned on the taps without any kind of reform. It's just, as you say, if you are on benefits, you are the only constituent in this budget that's going to get a pay rise. If
we were an incredibly rich country with growth of 3, 4, 5%, there would be so much national income that we could be like Scandinavia. We could be like Germany in the 1980s. But we don't. We've got low growth thanks to the policies of this government, which is why Rachel Reeves' approach is such a contradiction, because if she's going to have a sort of socialist agenda and cement the cult of welfarism within our country, she's going to have to pay for that. There's a great ironic twist that her policies will kill growth, so she can't spend the money that she wants to spend. The bond markets won't let us borrow, so she's between a rock and a hard place. It feels to me like that budget was a heady mix of economic and political incompetence.
Totally. And look, let's go back to the election where they said they weren't going to raise national insurance contributions, VAT or income tax. They then did that on national insurance contributions. That hit businesses that were already then having to face a minimum wage increase as well as business rates increase. So they
more red tape, and then they had to worry about the Workers' Rights Bill, which is passing through Parliament as we speak.
Totally. And then this year, they've had another minimum wage increase, smaller compared to last year, but still an increase in their overhead spending if you're a small business. What you're going to do, or what you're going to see, I mean, we were just talking about those 25-year-olds perhaps who are leaving the country because they can't see a future. It's the young people, the 18, 17, 16-year-olds that are trying to get a foot on the ladder. They will now be shut out because businesses won't be able to afford taking on another young person. In fact, they'll be laying people off because of those overhead spend that's now just been imposed on them by this budget. So you're not only going to see maybe young professionals in their early 20s who are leaving the country, you're going to see late teens, mid-teens, teenagers who can't get that opportunity to get that first work experience. That is a travesty of where we are as a society and as a country. And that's all because of her own choices. It's not to do with the last government, it's her political choices, it's her economic choices, and that's why we're in the peril that we're in.
Well, could Sir Keir Starmer's latest U-turn pave the way for Prime Minister Angela Rayner? I kid you not, that's next.
Big news coming this December. Our talkTV app is moving to the Talk app. You can watch, catch up and listen to all your favourite shows and podcasts anytime, anywhere, all on the Talk app. From Monday, 1st of December, the talkTV app will no longer exist, so don't miss out. So head over to your App Store or Google Play and search Talk now.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Morning glory, lovely to have your company. It is 17 minutes past 6, a big 4 hours for you. Rupert Lowe joining us later with some shocking new statistics about migrants on the run. 50,000 immigrants, illegal immigrants, have disappeared. And where are they? We need answers. What has happened? The authorities asleep at the wheel on this one. A big reaction on the text board to our conversation this morning. Peter says, good morning, Mark. Regarding the workers' bill, the ginger growler is not going to like that. We'll probably up her game to oust Starmer. Time to buy more popcorn, methinks. That's Peter in Croydon. Thank you, Peter. Good morning, Sharon in Staffordshire. She says, hello, Mark and Charlie. The budget was an absolute disgrace. Hard-working taxpayers are paying for lazy people and the multiple children that they're going to have to live comfortably and stay in bed all day watching TV, Uber Eats, and all the rest of it. That's Sharon. Thank you so much. I don't blame people, says another texter, for leaving this disgusting country that has no future, only if you are on benefits. Margaret in Yorkshire. Good morning, Mark and Charlie. Could this dishonest government be charged with false promises by turning their backs on the election manifesto that they promised prior to the election? Charlie, before we get to Angela Rayner and her leadership ambitions, does Margaret have a point there? What is the political price that would be paid by this Labour government for very clear breaches of the manifesto in 24?
Well, it'll be it's toxic for them. You know, the one thing that Keir Starmer presented himself as a person, as a man that was going to come in and do things differently. He was going to clean up politics. You know, the chopping and changing of leader under the Conservative Party was going to be thrown out. All of the sleaze, the scandals, that was going to be booked. I'm a former director. Did you know he was the former director of public prosecutions?
Oh, that's that I knew. What I don't know is I don't know what his father did for a living. No. Do you mind taking me a call? What did Starmer's dad do for 03444991000?
Exactly. You know, he told us
he made useful tools, didn't he?
He said, I'm not sure they're much use though. This one hasn't come up trumps. But look, he presented himself as someone that was going to do all of these things differently, that he was going to be whiter than white, that things were going to be managed in a, you know, the grown-ups were back in the room. And what have we seen? You know, it is lie after lie when it came to the manifesto commitments, not raising national insurance, income tax or VAT, then they go and raise national insurance contributions.
Rachel Reeves last year saying I won't have to come back for more.
And here we are again. So the question is, on whatever it is that they do now, you've got to ask the question, can you believe a word that they say? Can you believe that they're saying, I'm not coming back for more, as she said again, I think, only last night? Why should we believe her? Why should we have any confidence in what this government say? You know, if you couple that with things like doing things that weren't in their manifesto, taking winter fuel payments from people last year, that was a disaster, impacting some of the most vulnerable people. So all of these things that Margaret's talking about, you're absolutely right. If politicians don't do what they say they're going to do and don't deliver, that's one thing. But if they lie, I mean, that's certainly quite another. But then if they start doing things that they didn't tell us that they were going to do, that nobody voted for, I mean, you've got three reasons why people would not want to look at the Labour Party, I think, at the next general election.
Now, I know that there are plenty of questions to be asked about Reform UK. whether it's a functioning party, whether it's internally democratic enough, or is it the cult of Nigel? There's a big question about, who are their candidates going to be, who's actually got the expertise and experience in government to deliver their agenda. You've got all those important questions which we must probe over the next 2 or 3 years because they're likely to win the next election. But did you catch any of Nigel's letter to the British people on X yesterday?
Part of it.
Yeah, it went viral.
It did, yes. Yeah.
And the bit that stuck out to me, obviously it was the usual politician stuff, I'll make things better and it will be, jam tomorrow and we'll get free beer on Tuesdays and everything will be lovely and we'll be sunny every day and a new series of The Office. Right now, fair play, every politician does that. If you vote for me, things will be better. But he said something that really stood out. He said that when we get into government, we won't be able to cut taxes straight away because we're going to have to fix this broken economy. And our programme, you're going to have to wait for the good stuff because we've got to repair first and then splash the cash. And we've not had that level of honesty from a politician in recent memory. And I think that this could be the approach that Reform have now, particularly given accusations that they are more or less sort of, crypto socialists themselves, who are going to have, big state, big investment, big budget. That he's saying, no, it's going to be prudence all the way and managing expectations.
I think that's absolutely right. Look, Reform previously had this, economic policy of, spending cuts as well as spending on things like nationalising some of the industries, talking about tax cuts.
Child benefit.
Exactly. And then he ditched that a few weeks ago and people said, oh, this guy doesn't know what he's doing, doesn't know what they're talking about. How can you trust this party that, as you say, is a rabble-rouse of, a group of individuals. You've never run anything in terms of government before. How can you trust them? Actually, I think the reason why Reform have been sustained in the polls, in the lead that they do, is because actually he was being honest with the public. And we've got to learn, everyone in politics, I think, has got a lesson to learn, but they've got to learn the lessons of the past. Why did the Tories get kicked out? Because they didn't cut taxes when they said they were going to do. They didn't get on top of illegal migration. They didn't deliver on what they said they were going to do. It was a loveless landslide for Sir Keir Starmer, but the Labour Party haven't been able to understand that. And when you don't deliver on the things you say you're going to do, people will automatically look for alternatives. And so I'm not wanting to talk Reform down because I think they're saying a lot of things that lots of people care about. But what they're also doing, so they're tapping in to what the British public think, so they're articulating it better than anyone else. Nigel is a brilliant communicator, so, fair play to him. But they're also recognising that, look, we're not going to make the same mistakes as the two previous parties that have been in government have done. They've led you up the garden path. They've failed to deliver on the things that they said they're going to do. That's why people are turning in their droves to Reform, not necessarily because they like everything that Nigel says, but because people are pulling their hair out, wanting a politician, wanting a political party or a movement to just do what it says it's going to do and actually focus on the British people's priorities. And if you can do that, then you're obviously onto a winner.
Well, I've got 4 words for the next government, for the next Prime Minister, and hopefully this dovetails with the mentality within Reform as they potentially prepare for government. And the reason why I talk about Reform is because of the polls, okay? If they were essentially, monster raving loony, we wouldn't be talking about them, maybe just for a bit of entertainment, a bit of colour. They are on track to win the next election. I think there are shy Reform voters out there who are not revealing to pollsters that Farage has got their vote. I think that there will be a Trump-style landslide at the next election. I think they are underpriced. You heard it here first. But whoever it is, but if it is Farage, I've got 4 words for you, which is manage expectations, deliverable goals. And that's got to be the mantra for any future administration, because otherwise my viewers and listeners are going to check out of the political process altogether.
100%. And what does it come down to? There's one word I'd sort of add to that, which is what everybody wants. Because at times, sound the alarm, at times people can understand if you do need to raise taxes. People will get behind that, but only if it's done, and this is the word, in a fair way. It's all about fairness. And what Nigel is obviously saying is that, look, I'm not going to cut taxes because we've got to deal with the economy, but what I am going to do is cut spending. So where are the areas where there's all this wasteful spending, whether it's at local government level, which they're doing through this Doge programme, or whether it's in central government? And there is fat to be trimmed in central government. I mean, Rachel Reeves, tinkered around the sides, been cutting police and crime commissioners, for example. Yeah. She made a few local government reforms which will save, tuppence in comparison to what needs to be saved. But Nigel's saying, I'm going to make public spending cuts where we can axe unnecessary spending. Now, that's a tough choice in itself, but I'm going to do that first, before then seeing where all the money that we can save to pass on that tax cut. That's prudent, but that's fair. And as I say, if Rachel Reeves had been a bit fairer about the budget and done the things that she said she was actually going to do, so reforming welfare as well as making some changes like the two-child benefit cap, then I think people might have thought, OK, fair play, it's a bit, not really what we wanted, or it's OK, you've had to come back for more tax increases, but we understand why you're doing it. I don't think anybody, and I'm trying to be as fair as I possibly can, but if you had a Labour MP sitting in this seat, what is fair about this budget? What is it that have you actually done, apart from raise 26 billion for your own headroom, that is actually going to help people, apart from spending in the NHS, where actually is probably a department you could be looking at to make efficiency savings. You don't need to spend more on the NHS. You can make efficiency savings to reinvest in it. So you don't need to raise tax for that necessarily. And we're seeing in the papers today things like schools that are up in arms about some of the budget changes. So lots of things there. But I think, which is why I just think it is very difficult as the days go on. This budget is unravelling day by day.
And the funny thing is, I think it's bad news for Rachel. If I could go and have a beer with Rachel, I'd say, listen, you're crazy. Because, you're a lefty, right? You're a socialist. You exist to give money to poor people and to invest in public services. And there are times in our political cycle when that's the right thing to do, including potentially 1997, when Blair used economic growth to invest in hospitals and schools. And it was quite a period of renewal. I mean, I know that we had the open border to the east, and we had the Iraq War. There were many negatives, the absolute emasculation of our constitution. But economically, they didn't get too much wrong. And we've obviously not seen that under Rachel Reeves. So the whole thing is very self-destructive. But I want to ask you about a key other female figure, and that is Angela Rayner. Because one of the headline stories today is that Keir Starmer is to rip up the Workers' Rights Bill. And Angela Rayner's DNA suffuses that particular piece of legislation. The main thing to go is the idea of unfair dismissal rights from day one. It's going to be 6 months now, currently 2 years. Angela Rayner will likely use this U-turn as the basis of her leadership campaign, will she not, given the fact that Labour MPs and the party faithful are deeply unhappy about this U-turn?
Well, totally. And look, let's just, take a stock check. And why on earth, after what should have been a brilliant day for the government, and particularly for Rachel Reeves, delivering a budget, we're now again talking about leadership elections. So that is how the reality, that's how badly it's actually gone down with Labour backbenchers, because they are incensed by another government U-turn. Now we've got to look for an alternative. So people are not supporting Keir Starmer or Rachel Reeves as that duo at the helm. And when somebody loses their job as Deputy Prime Minister, who also happened to be the Housing Secretary because she didn't pay stamp duty, avoided tax, the idea that she's going to be the one to save us, the talent pool is limited, to say the very least.
Well, of course, the point is that the constituency for any Labour leadership election is not going to be the public. It's not going to be the business community. It's not going to be wealth creators. It's going to be backbenchers, party members and the unions, all of whom are to the left of this current administration. And it's interesting, isn't it? Because any replacement of Starmer and Reeves will be more left-wing, and any future budget will be more left-wing.
And that is the only saving grace, where people sort of say, right, let's get rid of Keir Starmer, let's get rid of Rachel Reeves.
Be careful what you wish for.
Be careful what you wish for, exactly. But the thing about Rayner is, I think, look, it's hard in government, and I think people recognise that. You've got to make tough choices, but you've got to then think about your legacy. I know people think, well, they shouldn't be thinking about the legacy, they should be thinking about actually doing the right thing for the people of this country. And so I think, for example, if Rachel Reeves, if she'd stuck to her guns, which she tried to bring in $5 billion of welfare savings a few months ago, but obviously the backbenches turned on her, you've got to realise that you're not a campaign movement, right? You are in government. And for Angela Rayner, most people, I would have thought, you don't need to be political, just have a common sense approach. How on earth, on your first day in a new job, can you have the ability to sue somebody for unfair dismissal, or your employer for unfair dismissal? If they ask you to come in and you don't do a very good job and they say, thank you very much for your time, I don't think this job is right for you, don't come back tomorrow, I think you're doing yourselves both a favour. But this is a campaign. This is a left-wing sort of, workers' rights. We are the Labour Party. We've got to protect the worker at all costs. But what does this actually mean? If this came into passing, where you could have the ability to sue your employer for unfair dismissal on day one, what are employers going to do? Are they going to take the risk? No, they're not going to employ anyone. So the idea that then you'll have an increase in unemployment. So there has to be the flexibility and understand that government doesn't create jobs, businesses create jobs, and it's businesses that create growth and economic growth, GDP, and prosperity for people in this country. So but this is a campaign movement. This is something that the Labour backbench will get exercised by because they want protection for their workers. Well, you don't get much protection if you don't have a job, and you won't have a job if your employer could be sued on day one because of unfair dismissal, as it would be claimed to be unfair dismissal, when actually it might not be a job for you. So I think, it's right to U-turn, because you want to give employers the flexibility of hiring and firing, as they should be able to. 6 months, I think, is perfectly acceptable. It is 2 years currently, fine. Shorten it, that's fine. But the idea was in their manifesto, which just to get the left excited, and now it's been ditched because that's a common sense approach. Obviously, that's exercised the left, and as you say, it's allowed people like Angela Rayner, who are seeking a comeback after a embarrassing dismissal for not paying her stamp duty on her new house in the South Coast. As former Deputy Prime Minister and Housing Secretary, it's allowed her an opportunity to come back, which I think, what does that say about our country and the Labour Party?
Most definitely. Well, I've got to say that this particular government are teetering on the brink. Change is coming, folks, but just can Britain withstand the next 2 or 3 years of this Labour government, potentially under even more left-wing leadership? It is 6:32. This is Morning Glory, 6:33 now, and the disastrous budget and the awful running of this country by Starmer and Reeves is the topic of today's Dolan's Dispatch at 9 a.m. Is this government dangerous? Because that is the theme of today's Dolan's Dispatch. I think if you look at all of their policies in the round, it is a clear and present threat to the national security of this country and to your well-being as a citizen, whether it's a culture of welfarism that we can't afford, total borrowing, which is taking us down the road of bankruptcy, and open borders, which is threatening the safety of our citizens. I consider this government to be dangerous. Is this government dangerous? Let me know your thoughts. 0344 499 1000. Text the word talk and your message to 87222. Get those voice notes in as well. Next up, more front pages, and how about this for a headline? Asylum seekers account for almost half of net migration, whilst our most talented run for the hills. This is Talk.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
6:36, it is Morning Glory, and I've got the dream team in the house today. Let me tell you, Alicia is producing the show. She cracks the whip, and let me tell you, she knows her onions. You're going to notice a significant uptick in the quality of the output today because of the leadership of this team today. Amy is our lead engineer, and she's pressing the buttons. Who's directing our TV output? Damien, look at that. Oh, he can do everything. He was the assistant producer yesterday. Damien is conducting our TV. He's doing the cameras. He's getting my best side. And let me tell you, if you want to watch this show, then head to YouTube, search Talk, and up we pop. And the brilliant Tommy is taking your calls. We love Tommy. He's very enthusiastic at any time of the day or night. He's got an energy which I don't think is natural. I suspect it's chemical, but good luck to him. Each to their own. And my phone number is 03444991000. Is this government dangerous? That's the topic of today's Dolan's Dispatch. It is a remark made by one of the listeners to this show, saying that that budget and Labour's approach to the economy in the country is dangerous. It stuck with me. I thought, yes, that is the word. So what do you think? How dangerous is this government? And in what way is it dangerous? Can you break it down for me? Leave me a voice note, 03444991000. How about this from Nadia? Good morning, Mark. Got to be thick to introduce workers' rights on day one. Well, I agree, Nadia. You would have thought that, wouldn't you? Tony says, hello. All political party manifestos should be made legally binding. Dear Mark, this is Jack in somewhere in the country. One cost not discussed is the annual cost of the House of Lords, £143.8 million. In the year 2023 to 24. Sean says, good morning, Mark. So that incompetent fool, Rachel Reeves, increased taxes by around £40 billion last year and another £26 billion this year. Simple question. With another £70 billion of taxes we're paying, how can she be so deluded that she thinks we're going to feel better off and the economy will grow? It's beyond stupidity. We need an election now, says Sean in Gloucester. Good morning, Mark. This whole budget has been so demotivating. Just for example, the last 2 days, I've driven 1,100 miles and worked 22 and a half hours. So all the more I do, the less I get. I read yesterday that a lady on benefits had a benefit rise of £900 per month. And yet there's people like myself getting less for working their backsides off. I'm afraid we need a general election now. This government is not fit for purpose. That was Carl. Natasha, good morning, Mark. The reason I'll vote Reform is because while they may not succeed in everything they try to do, they care. They care about our country and the British people. They're not driven by socialist ideology, which puts hard-working Brits at the bottom. And last but not least for the moment, Bill in Liverpool. Good morning, Mark. Woke up this morning to an email from HMRC telling me my tax code was being reduced from the 25th of the 11th, 25, the day before the budget, which means that this is another drop in my monthly pension, as well as the increases from budget day. I'm 74. I'm hoping that it's not a cold winter. I worked from 15 to 65, was never out of work and paid all my tax and national insurance. This government now make me envious of some of my neighbours, the ones that don't work and have Motability cars. Labour is dividing this society. Well, is this Labour government dangerous? If so, let me know how. Send me a voice note about that. This is a clip, and this is Sir Keir Starmer getting quite upset when challenged over the suggestion that he broke a manifesto promise.
You said during the election that you wouldn't be able to pay for a lift in the child benefit cap. You said it's a difficult thing. I want to put it in my manifesto. We can't. I'm being honest with the public. We can't afford it because I don't want to put people's taxes up. You've done exactly the opposite. You've lost the confidence of this.
Let me answer that, Beth. I absolutely do believe that we've got to lift children out of poverty. We've had a two-child cap in place for the best part of 10 years. The net result of that is hundreds of thousands of children have been living in poverty. That has a massive impact on their health. Go to any hospital, ask them what is the link between poverty and health. It's a direct link, and those children will not have the opportunity to go as far as their talents will. I'm not going to apologise for lifting 500,000 children out of poverty. I'm proud that this Labour government has done more on child poverty than any government has ever done.
Prime Minister, final question. You said you would do politics differently. You would put country before party. Instead, you have done today something your party wanted to save your own skin. You are not a government of service. You're a government of self-preservation.
I don't know how many interviews
I will say that Sky News and Beth Rigby are proving to be excellent interrogators of this government. Beth Rigby, she's certainly not a raging Tory, is she? But she's exposed the lies at the heart of this administration, Charlie.
Yeah, and she put that to Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, very directly there. And he was obviously rattled. He didn't like the accusation. Which is just for all to see. It was a manifesto commitment broken. Promise made, promise broken, just like the increases in tax that he said he wasn't going to do. And we've seen that the weight of the backbenchers in the Labour Party, they do have sway over this government. You know, they couldn't get reforms through. They couldn't get a welfare bill of £5 billion saving through their backbenchers. They had to U-turn, and because of all of the other issues that are going on. And the reason why, in answer to your Dolan's dispatch today, is this government dangerous? It isn't the most dangerous, because actually if you had somebody like Ed Miliband, that is someone who is political, far much, I think, to the left of Keir Starmer, who would have a plan, it would be a far more dangerous plan, because he'd probably be able to execute it. The danger of this government is it doesn't have a plan. It decides things on an ad hoc basis. It doesn't have a strategy, so it doesn't know what direction it's going in. Now, that is dangerous. You know, you want someone in charge who knows what they're doing or knows what they're about. Keir Starmer doesn't know what he's about. Now, he's obviously changed his mind because of political ambitions, or because of the risk that he's in of losing his job to his backbenchers, and he's had to lift the two-child benefit cap. He might believe that now. He obviously didn't a few months ago, or 18 months ago, but he might believe that now. It's okay to change your mind, but it's the politics of and the communication to the public to say, look, that's where we are, or that's where we want to be, or the situation has changed and therefore we're changing along with it. But don't take the public for fools. Don't say there's this £22 billion black hole when there isn't one, when you've just raised, as one of your texts has pointed out, that there was 40 billion raised last year, another near 30 billion this year. There is no black hole. We're now being taxed to the hills, where there's a 26 billion headroom that the Treasury has to splash the cash.
Yeah, and it's very noticeable from Wednesday's budget that Rachel Reeves has officially given up on growth, and she's officially given up on inflation. And those are probably the two main metrics of any successful economy.
Exactly. And when, you deliver a budget and you try and say, and again, you're absolutely right, as part of their manifesto, it was growth. That was their central plank of their manifesto. She barely mentioned it
on Wednesday.
Barely mentioned it. And why? Because the OBR forecast, and whatever you think of the OBR, it gives forecasts, and so you've got to consider them at the very least.
Well, I like the OBR. Do you know, I've been on their website this morning and they've given me the plot line for next week's EastEnders. Sharon Watts, she's gonna sleep with the lead barman at the Queen Vic.
Oh, I wish I knew who they were.
Can you? I get you everything for the OBR. They're amazing for their previews, I've got to say. You've got to follow their X account. Your interest rates for next year. It's like Mystic Meg.
Yes, exactly. But growth is down. It's projected to be growth down
1%
year on year.
1%. We were celebrating 1%. And isn't it true that actually when you hear about growth 1%, that is the overall GDP, that probably per capita, per head, per viewer and listener to this show, then you're in minus. That's effective recession, isn't it?
Yep. I mean, because
when you take into account inflation and, all of the headwinds that our viewers and listeners are facing now financially.
Totally. I mean, the only 1% I'm interested in is the 1% Club. I mean, I think it's a great show. And, you know, I'm yet to achieve it, but...
maybe Rachel should go on a TV game show and try and win some money.
Exactly. I mean, people would, they might think highly of better offer. But you're absolutely right. You know, when there is inflation is still high, when growth is down, when taxes are up, when you can't get a job, where you can't employ another person if you're a business because you've got a business rate increase, because you've got a national living wage, a national minimum wage increase, where you've got national insurance contributions on the up. You know, so it is very, very difficult for, again, the people who are the backbone of our economy. Those are the small and medium-sized businesses who employ people that want to grow, that want to innovate, and that want to invest. If all of that money is just, you know, snatched away and soaked up into the Treasury, then what does that say to people? You know, why should people invest in the UK? Why should anybody wake up today who has a brilliant idea say, you know what, I think Britain is the you know, where I can test my idea, where I will invest my own money or borrow money to create my product, which will generate growth. Why would you do that here?
Why would you indeed? You're just punished for doing so. Steve-O says, good morning, Mark. I'm retired, but still wake up very early, like back in the day when working. Anyway, I just wanted to bang on about the continual so-called leaks previous to the government, then the ridiculous publishing of the budget in its entirety before her from accounts got up to speak. Isn't all this akin to insider trading, as the announcements must have affected the markets even for a few minutes? Well, Steve-O, they did, and there's definitely a case to answer for the OBR there. Mark in Notts says, good morning, guys. Loving the show again. The budget was designed for one thing and one thing only, to claw back all the voters that are easily led by the thought of having more money in their pockets. Also, this will never bring these children out of poverty. From 14 years experience as foster carers, caring for young traumatised children, the irresponsible type of people that pop out more children for, let's face it, fags and booze usually, are the ones who actually will benefit from this. So the inevitable will happen. Social services will get involved, and these poor innocent children will be torn away from their siblings and placed in either foster care or children's homes, resulting in costing thousands of pounds for every child. Mark, thank you for that, and I salute your efforts as a foster parent who do such amazing work in this country. You really are angels of our community. There's no evidence that the lifting of the two-child benefit cap will go to the kids. It goes to the parents, and what they do with it is another conversation altogether. 6:48, Morning Glory, more to come.
Big news coming this December. Our talkTV app is moving to the Talk app. You can watch, catch up and listen to all your favourite shows and podcasts anytime, anywhere, all on the Talk app. From Monday, 1st of December, the talkTV app will no longer exist, so don't miss out. So head over to your App Store or Google Play and search Talk now.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is 51 minutes past 6 in the morning, coming up to 6:52, and your Friday starts here. Top of the morning to all of you. Lots and lots of stories to get through today. Dolan's dispatch at 9 a.m. Is this government dangerous? Let me know your thoughts. 0344 499 1000. If so, in what way is it? Anna in Surrey says, Mark, the Marxist playbook is to take out the strongest first, the British working class, the very people who defended our country from the tyranny of the Reich. I'm attending a meeting on Thursday to try to prevent a campaign started by a Liberal Democrat councillor. She wants to remove the Union flag from Aldershot, the home of the British Army. These people want to take everything from us. Cliff in Berkshire says, Mark, the gangster government is dangerous because they're demotivating the electorate. The people tend to be a nation's greatest asset. But it seems to me that our people are being downtrodden by this unpatriotic government. Hopefully the people have learned their lesson and will never vote for a Labour government again. And Cole in Birmingham, good morning, Cole. How are you? Cole says, good morning, Mark. Just on the lifting of the child benefit cap. So if a parent or parents do or don't work, will they be overall capped on the amount they can have from the benefit system? The cap will lift for these parents, but they won't actually benefit as they're capped at a certain limit unless they're claiming any disability limits. So in fact, the people who will benefit from this are working parents who claim universal credit to top up their wages. A good question, Cole. I would say the message from this budget is that it does not pay to work and it does pay to sit at home. Brilliant stuff. Listen, lots and lots of more texts and voice notes to get through. In fact, should we take a listen to Wayne? This is Wayne's remark. Is this get dangerous government a concern for you? Take a listen to this.
Good morning, Mark. So if I lie to the police and I lie to courts and I lie to judges, I get in trouble for perverting the course of justice. If I lie on my job, I'm sacked because I've lied to get there. If I lie to my wife, I'm probably going to get divorced if it's something quite serious. Yet, as a politician, you can lie to get into power, you can lie while you're in power, and there is absolutely no comeuppance. There is nothing. You have got another 3 years of nothing but lies, gaslighting, and just destroying this country. What a way to wake up.
A damning but brilliant voice note. And this is the problem. The credibility now within our political class is so bad. Any green shoots of hope for the Tories this week, Charlie?
Well, I mean, anybody that saw Kemi Badenoch's response to the budget, I think, would be buoyed by it. You know, she was brilliant at the dispatch box. You know, it was a terrible takedown of Rachel Reeves's announcements, the plans that she'd set forward, because I think Kemi had the benefit, don't get me wrong, of seeing what was in the budget long before it was announced, as many people did.
And she had the benefit of her gender, didn't she?
Well, yes, exactly. And that's the other thing. Just in response to your last voice note, you know, you can lie on your CV to become Chancellor and tell us that you've been an economist for the Bank of England for 10 years. You can then try and throw us all off course because we're criticising, you know, potential measures that have been leaked time and time and time again. And, you know, the Chancellor put that down to mansplaining as if we're all sort of just having a go at the Chancellor for the sake of it. Well, Kemi Badenoch put her back in her place and said, look, I'm going to tell you woman to woman. It's not mansplaining. Yes. You can be scrutinised like everybody else. You can be told when things aren't going in the right direction. And I think Kemi Badenoch was great in doing that. Does it cut through to the rest of the country? Are the country really, again, at this moment in time, ready to listen to what the Conservatives have to say? I don't think we're quite there yet, but, you know, we've got 3 more years to go under this government. Whether it's Keir Starmer, whether it's someone else at the helm, I don't think there's going to be an early general election, so far as I can see. But all Kemi can keep doing is the performances that she's currently putting in, and that might change fortunes.
What does that path to redemption look like for the Conservatives?
Well, look, I mean, I think there is an acknowledgement that they got things wrong. They didn't tackle immigration. They didn't tackle illegal immigration when they said they were going to. They didn't bring taxes down. Now, people were obviously very angry about that. There is a story, I think, to be told. I think there is some justification in some of the things that the Tories did. They didn't get everything right, so I'm not going to sit here and, you know, try and throw your listeners and viewers off any kind of course. But I think that there has to be some element of recognition that when you had a global pandemic, whether you thought the spending was right, whether you thought the lockdowns were right and all the rest of it, but we had a pandemic, decisions were made, whether they were right, whether they were wrong. There was a lot of borrowing that took place that had to be spent for. There was a war in Ukraine, energy prices went up, the government stepped in to try and tackle those energy prices, that had to be paid for. The fallout of Brexit, again, whatever the side of the argument you're on, there had to be money in the coffers in order to ensure that businesses still ran as smoothly as they possibly could. So there had to be an element of, let's not rock the boat, let's not go for tax cuts as soon as the government would have liked. That's what Liz Truss tried to do. She tried to shake that up, and it obviously didn't work out particularly well because she didn't have the confidence in the market. So there's a narrative for the Conservatives. It would be a plead to the electorate to say we got things wrong, but these are the reasons why. It wasn't all that bad after during the 14 years of our time in government. And let's not forget, people had plenty of opportunity to vote out the Conservatives. You know, there was an election in 2010, 2015, 2017, 2019, and after all of those elections, I think the vote share of the Conservatives increased. Even though it went down in terms of the number of seats in 2017, the vote share, the popular vote, as it were, under the Tories still went up.
The difficulty they've got is that Reform are pitching themselves as the real Conservatives. And therefore it's so difficult now for Kemi Badenoch to find a place, you know, in that sort of spectrum politically that the Reform party now inhabits.
Exactly, and that's why I think there was a bit of criticism from Kemi when she first came in, because there was a sort of a bunker mentality. I know she wanted to get to grips with the job. It was a new job for her as leader of the opposition, but there seemed to be a vacuum of conversation from Conservatives, which allowed Farage to sort of move in and take up the role as the leader of the opposition, as it were. But as time goes on, we'll have to see. A long way to go. Reform will be under scrutiny because they're always consistently ahead in the polls now, so they'll be under that scrutiny like everybody else. And all the Tories have got to do is just stick together, I think, and keep going and keep those small wins. They did very well against Angela Rayner, for example, when they exposed her for not paying her taxes. Kemi Badenoch did very well exposing the flaws in this budget. They just need to keep tight and keep going and see what happens.
What's the best they can hope for now? Because Farage is not going to suddenly see a collapse in his support, is he?
No, I don't think so. Unless something really cataclysmically goes wrong.
No, you've got so many pals within the Tory movement, and you're a very loyal chap, and that's valuable in its own way. But maybe I can answer the question for you, which is I think the best they can hope for is to hold the balance of power in a Reform-led government.
Yes, yeah, and I would.
That's where we are now.
Totally, and if you look, we're in a 5-party system now. The Greens are doing okay compared to what they were under the previous leadership of the Greens. Votes are draining from Labour to the Greens and your party.
Well, I've got to say, I love Zach Polanski. My chest expands every time he speaks. Really. Which is why you need to watch this output. If you're listening to the show, it's lovely to have your company on the radio. You can watch us on YouTube as well. Just search Talk on YouTube and up we pop. Listen, folks, is this government dangerous? If so, let me know why. I want your voice notes and texts on that. Isn't Charlie Rowley a legend? Political commentator, he'll come back soon. Is this government dangerous? Let me know why. That's next.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Coming up to 3 minutes past 7, top of the morning. I'm Mark Dolan. This is Morning Glory. A big 3 hours for you as you go about your Friday, whatever you're up to. May I salute you? Perhaps you're getting breakfast into your kids' stomachs, right? Because you still understand what parenting actually looks like. You don't expect the state to raise your kids. Perhaps you're getting ready for work. Maybe you're at the tail end of a night shift. Either way, fair play to anyone that gets up in the morning and makes their contribution. Talk as a network and Morning Glory as a show is all about Alarm Clock Britain, and this is your wake-up call, especially politically, because let me tell you, 2 days and 2 U-turns, having broken a manifesto promise not to increase taxes on working Brits. Sir Keir Starmer is to tear up Angela Rayner's workers' rights bill following an outcry from industry. Will the ginger growler herself, Angela Rayner, use this U-turn as the basis for a leadership campaign to evict Keir Starmer from 10 Downing Street? And with the government's plans in disarray following the nightmare Wednesday budget, just who is running Britain? Is it backbench Labour MPs? Is it the unions? It's certainly not Starmer, who has lost control of his administration. Will bring reaction. Meanwhile, the brain drain from Starmer's socialist chaos continues apace. A record 110,000 people seek asylum as the most talented young Brits leave in their droves. We'll be looking at the exodus of young workers fleeing high-tax Britain. Meanwhile, mastermind himself, David Lammy's efforts to scrap jury trials hits the buffers. And a shocking statistic: 53,000 missing illegal immigrants. The Home Office have lost them, and they are coming to a town near you. I'll be joined live on the show by the man that exposed this shocking oversight, Rupert Lowe, live at 8. And I've got a question for you this morning. Is this government dangerous? If so, let me know how it's dangerous, because I spoke to a caller 2 days ago who was complaining about the budget, was complaining about the state of the country, the open borders, the net zero, all the stuff we can't afford. And you just said, Mark, it's dangerous. And that stuck with me. And that is the topic of today's Dolan's Dispatch at 9 a.m. But is this government dangerous? If so, let me know why. My priority for the next 3 hours is to get your opinions on the national radio and television airwaves. My phone number is 03444991000. Tommy is taking your calls. And if you're busy, leave us a voice note, because those voice notes are very valuable to the show, and we often repeat them later in the programme. You can also text the word TALK in your message to 87222. We're on the radio, but if you want to watch the show, just head to YouTube and search Talk, and Talk will appear. As the saying goes, let's talk. This is Morning Glory. It's 5 past 7. A very, very busy 3 hours to come. And I've got a message here from Phil to kick off the hour. Good morning, Mark. On migration, the small boats are the tip of the iceberg. Net migration of 204,000 people. This hides the true figure of 898,000 migrants over the past year. Does this show just how many Brits and Europeans are leaving and why our streets look so different? We are being replaced without doubt, says Worried in Coventry. How about this from Louise in Ipswich? Good morning, Mark. I have to challenge about Blair's NHS investment. He instigated the public-private initiative. We had a brand new casualty built. The old one was shabby but functioned. The cost of the new one meant closing a children's ward and our stroke day unit. This casualty was only leased. We ended up having to build yet another casualty building. The NHS is broken beyond repair, says Louise in Ipswich. At 7:07, let me give you today's front pages. The Daily Telegraph: Starmer rips up Rayner's rights bill. Second manifesto breach in as many days prompts fury among Labour backbenchers. Young people flee Labour's high-tax Britain. A net 110,000 British people aged 16 to 34 emigrated in the year to March, according to the Office for National Statistics. Why are they leaving? Because they're overtaxed, they can't get on the housing ladder, and they have no hope for the future. Electric car drivers face yearly mileage checks is the other headline in the Telegraph. The Guardian, ministers ditch manifesto pledge for job protection from day one. Financial Times, Labour dilutes flagship workers' rights bill following pressure from business. iPaper, Labour U-turn on workers' rights as PM denies budget tax rises break promise. Daily Mirror, fresh clue to 1999 murder. Dando cops Serbian hitman probe. Daily Express, your delay is stealing precious time and choice. Terminally ill criticise Lord's amendments that could derail assisted dying law. Daily Mail, record 110,000 seek asylum as Britons leave in droves. The headline is the brain drain from Starmer's socialist. Chaos. Official figures yesterday revealed an exodus of young Britons, while asylum seekers now make up nearly half of net migration. The Times newspaper, stealth taxes mean dismal living standards, say economists, and day one protection of workers' rights banned. Meanwhile, Putin dashes peace hopes with call for Kyiv retreat. And the Sun newspaper, Britain's best-selling newspaper, £30 billion tax grab fallout. Britain is being fleeced by my niece. You won't believe this story. Rachel Reeves' budget was last night blasted as a bonanza for benefit claimants by critics, including her own uncle, Big Uncle Terry. Terry Smith is 73. He joined a long line of detractors after the Chancellor announced a £30 billion tax bomb, putting skivers ahead of strivers. Let's get reaction to all of the big political stories of the day in the company of broadcaster and political commentator Emma Trimble. Good morning, Emma.
Good morning, Mark. Long time no see.
Long time no see. Great to have you back on the programme. With the young fleeing the country and almost half of our net migration figure coming from those from abroad, migrants, this doesn't end well, does it?
It certainly doesn't. And why would you stay? What you're seeing in this latest budget from Labour is a tax on the extremely high taxes on the only productive parts of the economy in order to fund the unproductive parts of the economy. It's anti-business. We're seeing people being sort of taxed up to their eyeballs, milked dry by this government. If you're a young person and you had any aspiration, if you wanted to set up a business, they're going to tax you on dividends. They're going to make it as hard as possible for you to have any kind of entrepreneurial future in this country. If you're a saver, they're going to tax that as well. The income threshold being frozen means that you're going to get taxed earlier. Student loan payments going up. If you're a young person, you have any kind of aspirations, why wouldn't you leave? Which is why so many young people are going to Australia. And at the same time, the rise in immigration is being fueled by asylum seekers, but of course we know that 90+% of those asylum seekers are coming across illegally on these small boats across the channel. They're not going to be economically productive contributors to the economy. That all we're doing is paying billions in order to keep these people in nice accommodation, to feed them lovely food. So the British people are being treated really as if we're a piggy bank for the rest of the world. And if you were a young person, and like I say, you had any aspirations in this world and in your life, why on earth would you stay in Britain if only to suffer for patriotic reasons?
Most definitely. We really have to worry about this. Even, the so-called, because we focus a lot on the boats, don't we, Emma? But the legal net migration is an issue, because if we're bringing people in to plug the gap in, let's say, social care, that's fine. They're doing jobs that lazy Brits won't do. There's still a net cost to the Treasury by the end of their lifetime, and this is a conversation we need to have.
Yeah, if they live to the age of 81, sort of average age, then they cost hundreds of thousands of pounds to the economy. And
did you know if they live to 90, it's $1 million?
Exactly, and the skilled migration is actually on the down. So we're having an increase in asylum seekers, an increase in unskilled migrants, and we're having young Brits leaving the country, the sorts of people who would be creating the wealth. So actually what Labour are doing is they're eliminating all of the people who are producing the wealth in order for them to tax. I mean, there could not possibly be a more dangerous approach to the economy. And you were saying before there, Mark, is this government dangerous? Well, they're dangerous because they're allowing in all of these unvetted young men into communities. We've already seen, every day it seems to be another story of rape or violence. And they're dangerous because they are executing the worst vandalism on our economy. It will be very, very difficult for the next government to bring us back from the brink, I think. I dread to think where we'll be in 30 years' time.
Most definitely. And the economic policies are dangerous, are they not? Because with the endless borrowing, the inflation and the cult of welfareism that's now been cemented by this administration, we are very sensitive to any potential unforeseen economic shocks in the future.
Absolutely. We're obviously not resilient at all. And it's not just sort of on the level of numbers. You just have to look at communities around the country, how run down places have become, how disenfranchised and disenchanted people are, how little trust and faith people have in democracy because they keep voting time and time again for example, lower migration, and they never get listened to. It's an extremely dangerous situation. And to be increasing welfare, to be taxing people to death in order to increase welfare is an extremely dangerous thing to do. As Kemi Badenoch has pointed out recently, it's immoral to have a situation that disincentivizes people from getting back into work. One of the stories that you've mentioned today, Mark, about the changes in terms of employment rights, it's yet another example. And yes, it might be a tiny victory for businesses that they were lobbying not to have this come in on the very first day that someone is employed. But even when you look at the other U-turns that Labour have done, even though they deny, doing things like increasing national insurance and also freezing the income tax, it's not just bad for workers, it's bad for businesses. They can't employ people because they're at risk of going bust because the national insurance payments are so high. So then young people aren't getting employed. So they try to pitch this as if it is in some way good for young people, but the facts and the numbers of people emigrating speaks for itself. If you have a country where young people feel that they have to leave, then you are driving the country to the brink. It's an extremely dangerous situation. And so when Kemi Badenoch was so angry at the dispatch box the other day, and people were saying that she shouldn't have been talking about Benefit Street and so on because that was unpleasant language, I think she is expressing the anger and the frustration of the British public about how absolutely dire this situation is. This government need to wake up to how dangerous they are.
Most definitely. And what we're doing is we're exporting doctors, engineers and entrepreneurs, and we're importing care home workers, taxi drivers and people that deliver fast food for Uber Eats.
Yeah, we're creating a situation in which the country simply cannot function. All of our best talent is leaving, and we're bringing in all of these unskilled, effectively dependence on the state. And it's such an obviously unsustainable system. And then we have this ridiculously crooked scam of the one in, one out policy, where we're deporting literally less than 200 people. When you look at the numbers, the idea that it's some kind of success to have deported less than 200 people back to France, one of whom, by the way, came back and had to be deported again, but are also bringing in the same number of people from France. That's not what the British public want. They want the illegal migration to stop, but they also just want migration to stop in general. We cannot, be a sort of perpetual piggy bank for the rest of the world. We cannot support every single person who wants to come here. And some people would say that asylum seekers should be allowed to work, they should be allowed to contribute to the economy, but that would also be wrong, because we should be assessing their claims properly and deporting them if they should be here. And frankly, in my opinion, anybody that comes here illegally should be immediately deported.
Indeed. So now, if you don't mind, if it's not impertinent or too personal to say, Emma, is it fair to say that you're a practicing Christian?
I am, yeah.
So therefore, and I ask that in good faith because I want to ask you, is there a moral and ethical case, even a Christian case, for lifting the two-child benefit cap?
You can spin it as it being a pro-child policy. Of course, many people have pointed out that actually the people that this benefit the most are those who have come here from elsewhere, because they tend to have larger families. So it's not necessarily benefiting British families. I actually think that there is a Christian case in the other direction, that parents have a responsibility to look after their children, and that there is a case for charity. Of course, everybody wants children to be fed, but the idea that that's something that should be, we've had a discussion about free school meals recently, the idea that that's something that should be universal and paid for by the state. I mean, there are moral arguments in both directions. There are many good pro-family policies that this government could take, policies like those that we've seen in countries like Hungary. I think Poland has some good pro-child policies.
Tax breaks would be good, because then that rewards work, doesn't it?
Precisely. It rewards those who are in work, who are contributing to the economy, and it doesn't create dependence. It doesn't create an incentive simply in order to get money from the taxpayer. And it's not fair that working families who are already struggling, who are struggling to pay their bills, their mortgages, struggling with the cost of living, should have to subsidise those who are not working, who are not contributing, who are maybe on benefits, but happen to have more children. It means that actually those responsible families are less likely to have children, because they feel that they should only have children if they can look after them. Instead, the government should be supporting families by having a thriving economy, by having economic growth, and like you say, by certain pro-family measures like tax cuts, as they do in other countries. There are lots of things that you could do that don't create dependence on the state. And as Kemi Badenoch has pointed out, there is actually a Christian argument for, helping people back into work, helping people stand on their own 2 feet. Dependence is not a Christian virtue.
Most definitely not. But we're dependent on your common sense, Emma. Have an excellent Friday and look forward to you joining us on the show again in the near future. Emma Trimble is a broadcaster and political commentator. Is this government dangerous at 7:19 on a Friday morning? Absolutely. Says Neil in Dundee. Apart from the other taxes, which are bad for me, I drive 25,000 miles a year for work in the energy sector in a plug-in hybrid. My tax on that alone has shot up by £375 a year. Just shocking. Peter says, yes, Labour are a threat to our national and international security, investing more in the military when it's desperately needed, and not investing more in the military when it's desperately needed, and the treasonous act of cozying up to China, the Chagos Islands, the spy links, the spy embassy and the economic ties. Peter, thank you for that. Is this Labour government dangerous? Let me know your thoughts. If it's dangerous, why? 0344 499 1000. Leave me your voice notes. Big statistics in the last 24 hours regarding legal and illegal immigration. So in the year ending June 2025, net migration to the UK fell to 204,000. It's too high though, isn't it? What is the right number? We'll discuss that next.
Big news coming this December. Our talkTV app is moving to the Talk app. You can watch, catch up and listen to all your favourite shows and podcasts anytime, anywhere, all on the Talk app. From Monday, 1st of December, the talkTV app will no longer exist, so don't miss out. So head over to your App Store or Google Play and search Talk now.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
7:24, this is Morning Glory. Mark Dolan with you till 10. Delighted to have your company. In Dolan's Dispatch at 9 a.m, I'll be making the case that this government is actually dangerous. A threat to our national security, a threat to our economy, a threat to the safety of our citizens. Net zero, anti-business policies, sky-high taxes, and of course the open borders. There's a consistent theme, a government at odds with the interests of its own people. In my book, that's dangerous. Am I wrong? Let me know your thoughts. 03444991000. Is this government dangerous? Leave me a voice note and tell me why. And also tell me if you disagree. Chris says, Mark, I absolutely believe this government is dangerous. Both Reeves and Starmer seem to have changed tack. As when Starmer was questioned by Beth Rigby, instead of accepting that they have failed in their commitments in their manifesto, they present a false anger to hide the real truth. Reeves did the same thing on lifting the two-child cap. She annoyingly gets angry and says, I make no apology. Then they use emotive language to try and silence the journalists. Shocking. Well, Chris, they absolutely silence the journalists. And do you know what they do? They ignore the upwards of 500,000 people that listen to Talk every single week and the tens of millions who watch us on digital platforms like YouTube. We couldn't get an interview with Rachel Reeves, which I think speaks volumes. The woman is running scared. She knows that she would have accountability if she appeared on this network, and she would certainly get accountability if she appeared on this show. 7:26. Let's have a look at the latest immigration numbers. So, first of all, since the Prime Minister came to office, 62,229 people have entered the country illegally. That's over 60k individuals who are going to need accommodation, 3 meals a day, a mobile phone, pocket money, and some of whom, and it may be a small portion, I don't care, one is too many, who pose a threat to the well-being and welfare and safety of our own citizens. But what we had in the last 24 hours is the latest figure, 2025, almost 40k, which is up 6%. So much for smashing the gangs. But let's also talk about legal net migration. The government have triumphantly announced that it's down to 204,000. That is still a vast number. Whatever happened to tens of thousands? I want to ask you, what's the right number for legal net migration, as some of our youngest and finest, as we discovered this morning, are fleeing this country in their thousands? Let's get an overview from a very good friend of mine. Robert Bates is the research director at the Centre for Migration Control. Good morning, Robert.
Morning, Mark. How are you doing?
I'm very well. Happy Friday, but not very happy figures on illegal and legal net migration. What about that figure, 204,000? It's been celebrated by this current administration. Is it still too high?
Yeah, I think it's really disingenuous for Labour ministers to be coming out somehow expecting a round of applause from the British public that have for over a decade now been voting consistently for net migration to be coming down, and instead they've been seeing record highs. I actually think the figure itself, the 204,000, obscures the fact that is only so low because many Brits, many young, potentially very productive Brits have been leaving the country. And actually, the numbers coming into the country from predominantly outside Europe is still at levels that are historically unprecedented. Close to 900,000 coming in just 1 year simply isn't a sustainable state of affairs. And many of those individuals are frankly going to be long-term economic costs of those 900,000. I think there were about 7,000 visas for doctors and about 5,000 visas for engineers. So, they're not all doctors and engineers. In fact, many of them are simply actually coming to Britain in the hope of having a bit of a handout and a bit of a payday. So I think to answer your question as to what the right number of migration to Britain needs to be, I think we're at the point, having seen the Boris wave, having seen Prime Minister after Prime Minister promise tens of thousands that they'd bring numbers down, and instead seeing the exact opposite happen. I think we need a period of net negative migration where actually we see more people leaving the country than entering the country, because our labour force as a result of mass migration is in such a state of flux and churn. Our societies and communities simply aren't able to assimilate this scale of migration. And I think the only way to actually undo some of the damage that has been inflicted is to see a period of net emigration.
Yes, and I think Tim would agree with you. He says, good morning, Mark. We always hear about net immigration. What are the gross figures, numbers in, out? We don't hear trades in and trades out. So how many doctors we're losing, how many doctors we're getting, how many entrepreneurs we're losing, how many entrepreneurs we're getting. He says, yes, our government are dangerous. The biggest hazard in a country is misinformation. We need the truth to form an opinion. And that's the problem. Government ministers hide behind these gross statistics, don't they?
They absolutely do, because the real figure we should be using is the net migration figure of foreign nationals, which was still way over 300,000 a year, because that is the figure that really shows actually the transformation taking place in society, and on the economic side of things, the transformation taking place in the labour market. Because if you're losing young Brits who are quite well socialised into the British workplace, have an idea of the norms and customs, and you're replacing them with individuals, some of whom don't actually have a very good grasp of English to start with, and are perhaps not familiar with common practices and haven't been socialised in Britain, you're going to end up with a layer of attrition effectively baked into how day-to-day processes in companies and the economy work. So that's a huge consideration that just seems to be completely overlooked. And as I said, the numbers actually coming in who are doctors and engineers, those two sort of professions that are seen as a staple of high-skill professions, they're about 1.3% of the total number coming in to the country, and many more are coming in as family members or dependents who we know from Home Office data are going to be earning far less than the British median wage, and therefore they're going to have to require welfare. They're going to take out more from public services than they're able to pay in to the Treasury. Unfortunately, we don't actually have data at all really on the professions that are leaving, and I think that is something that we really need to focus on, because we could then, once we know why Brits are leaving, who the Brits that are leaving actually are, what their background is, what their career is, we could then start doing a bit more to actually try and retain these people. Because at the moment, and especially having seen the way this Chancellor is handling the economy, she seems to be doing all she can to chase them out of the country. I think it's about time we actually try to keep our best and brightest, rather than treat them effectively as a piñata that can just keep repeatedly smashing for more taxpayers' money and give nothing in return. So I don't actually begrudge those that have chosen to go and set their horizons elsewhere, because frankly, this is a country that, as a young person, you look around and you think, is this really something that actually is working for me? Is this a situation or a country or a government that is on my side? And you'd be hard-pressed to reach any answer that isn't a steadfast no, this isn't a government that's on my side.
Most definitely not. And it's a red herring, isn't it, this idea that our public sector is so desperate for staff that we've got to open the border, given the fact that you've pointed out, if a low-paid worker comes into this country that, by the way, may not share the values of this country, they come from a alien philosophy about how to live life and different attitudes to women, do they speak the language well, they're going to be a net dependent on the welfare state, even if they're in work, because it's low-skilled work. It would be cheaper, wouldn't it, to simply pay social care workers and people in the NHS tens of thousands more a year than bring people in?
It'd be much more straightforward to actually sort of say to those local authorities, if you can guarantee a certain proportion of your workforce at any one time is British trained, then you'll have a little increase in funding to those private sector companies saying, right, the days of paying yourselves big dividends are over. And of course, it isn't just in terms of Labour that the health and social care sector can do a lot more. It can do a lot more when it comes to automation as well. I think what we've actually eschewed by pursuing this low wage, low skill migration in the care sector is a lot of investment in capital technology, automation, those investments that can just generally increase the productivity of the sector, which is frankly in dire straits when it comes to GVA per hour worked. I think as well we could also do a lot more to train our own British doctors. I think we have a ridiculous cap in place of nearly 11,000. We're only allowed to train 11,000 doctors in the UK, British born, at any one time. That makes no sense. That benefits absolutely no one. And since 2019, tens of thousands of potential medical students who may well have been very well suited to the role have been turned away simply because of an arbitrary cap. And the result has been that we've had to turn to overseas, to countries that are actually maybe in some cases on the World Health Organization's red list of facing their own labour shortages, and recruit from abroad rather than train our own people. It is a morally unjust state of affairs, and it is economically absolutely ridiculous to continue going down this route. And as the numbers continue to fall, I hope that actually the Labour Party don't start banking on this and think, OK, the British public will be happy with this now. They can see a huge drop. We don't need to do any more, because we have to keep going. The numbers have to, frankly, drop far, far lower than they actually are at the moment.
Good to see you, Robert. Thank you for joining us on Morning Glory. Robert Bates is a research director at the Centre for Migration Control. What is a good number for legal net migration? Robert Bates says we've got to go into the negative, and we must have more folk leaving the country than entering it. Rupert Lowe is at 8 o'clock with the shocking news that the Home Office have lost track of over 50,000 illegal immigrants. They're coming to a town near you. Next up, the Shadow Business Secretary. Just how broken is Britain?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
7:37, this is Morning Glory. Mark Dolan with you until 10 a.m. Dolan's dispatch at 9 a.m. This government aren't just incompetent, they are dangerous. Do you agree? Let me know your thoughts. Send me a voice note. Is this government dangerous? And if so, why? 0344 499 1000. Text the word talk in your message to 87222. Jason in Pompey. Hi, Mark. Some context for the taxpayer. I'm in the 40% tax band, paying 15 grand income tax. And let me tell you that it's over 3 times as much to accommodate an illegal immigrant for a year. You get up in the morning, folks, you work very hard, and the tax you pay doesn't even touch the sides in relation to the cost of illegal immigration, in relation to the spiralling welfare state, and of course, all of it gets eroded by inflation. Let's get reaction now, live from Westminster, and the Shadow Business Secretary, Andrew Griffith. Good morning, Mr. Griffith.
Good morning, Mark.
Are you delighted at this U-turn, this tearing up of the Workers' Rights Bill, of course masterminded by Angela Rayner, which will not see workers have unfair dismissal rights from day one?
Well, this change is really good for workers and businesses because it means that businesses will be able to take a risk on people, as they always have done, and hire and not find themselves immediately down to the employment tribunal. But let's be clear, this is one page, one measure in a 330-page employment bill. What the government should be doing if they were serious about growth, and God knows we need it, they should be tearing up the whole bill, not just this one clause. They're still arsonists. They've just put down their flamethrower. They've still got plenty of matches and lighter fluid, unfortunately, when it comes to jobs. We need more jobs. Our young people desperately need jobs. We've got a generation jobless rising, and the government's really not serious. But it is a welcome U-turn, to be clear.
Indeed. And a worrying headline in the Telegraph today, Mr. Griffith. Young people flee Labour's high-tax Britain. A net 110,000 British people aged 16 to 34 emigrated in the year to March, according to figures from the ONS. So it means that almost the majority of net migration figures in this country are coming from those overseas. This doesn't end well, does it?
It doesn't end well at all. So at the high end, we've got people who've built businesses and wealth creators fleeing for other countries because of the Chancellor's prejudice and dogma. And at the other end, our best and brightest young people just feel, whether it's due to constant attacks by this government, street crime from the Mayor of London and other urban areas, they just feel that there's not enough here for them. That is a proper tragedy. We've always made a contribution by some of our young people travelling the world or the Commonwealth or the Empire before it. But in this case, people are feeling pushed out. It's terrible that they don't feel that there's enough opportunity and positivity and optimism here at home. This is a great country, but I'm afraid socialism is not a great way to run your country if you want to give the maximum number of opportunities for young people.
This government is even more left-wing than feared, isn't it?
I think it's the most left-wing government this country's ever had, because it's left-wing on so many different fronts. We've got the economic socialism, we've got the red tape, we've got still the woke coming through our institutions, and we've got the state spending a record proportion, confirmed in the figures that came out this week, on itself. So it's great if you're addicted to welfare, if you're in the public sector, cosseted with quite good pensions to look forward to at the end. But if you're hardworking, getting up in the morning, want to work for yourself, want to be self-employed, all of these choices, the government's really not on your side. Next Conservative government will be. We didn't always get it right when we were in government. I'm a Conservative who joined the party under Mrs. Thatcher, and she did great things for the party.
Most definitely, and that was the golden era, wasn't it? Economically, politically, we'd gone from the sick man of Europe to a global beacon of diplomacy, of economic output, of creativity. We'd like to go back to those days. Many people, though, Andrew, see Nigel Farage and Reform UK as the path to glory for this country, not the Conservatives.
Well, look, the Conservative Party's under new management. Many of the top team are new. My own background was 27 years in business. I am serious about getting this country working again, cutting red tape, having the right fiscal framework, cheaper energy bills as put forward by my colleague Claire Coutinho. So look, people will have choices. I'm a big believer that politics, leading our great country, should absolutely be a competitive domain. But I think we are different. We are under new management. We're getting back to good conservative principles and policies. Things like this conference pledge to cut stamp duty, in my own department, promising to reverse the family business death tax, which is a devastating tax on family businesses, which will destroy a generation. Look, judge us as you see us, but we're back, we're here. It's Conservatives that have forced this U-turn on the terrible unemployment bill. There's more work to do. I'm not giving the government any credit or a free pass on all of the other things in that bill, the right to roam for trade unions, the back to the 1970s union powers and the rest of it. But we're here and we're fighting.
Thanks, Andrew. Have a good Friday. Andrew Griffith is the Shadow Business Secretary. What do you think about the Tories? Is it too little, too late? Or has Kemi Badenoch risen to the occasion following that rather egregious budget from Rachel Reeves? But I've got a big question for the next part of the show, and it ties in with today's Dolan's Dispatch. Is this government dangerous? If so, why? We'll discuss that next.
Big news coming this December. Our talkTV app is moving to the Talk app. You can watch, catch up and listen to all your favourite shows and podcasts anytime, anywhere, all on the Talk app. From Monday, 1st of December, the talkTV app will no longer exist, so don't miss out. So head over to your App Store or Google Play and search Talk now.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
7:47. Lovely to have your company, Mark Dolan, on Morning Glory. Rupert Lowe waiting in the wings at 8 a.m. The Home Office have lost 50,000 illegal immigrants. Where are they? Well, they're on our shores and they are a threat to the country. More proof that this government is dangerous. That's the topic of today's Dolan's Dispatch at 9 a.m. Here's a voice note from Kevin. Take it away, Kevin.
They are massively dangerous. I'd actually use a couple of other words that they're not broadcastable at this time in the morning. I think they forgot the number one priority is whether you voted Labour or not in last election. They're now in power and they're supposed to govern for all the country. And all they've done is divide the country and set people against other people. And you can see this even in the budget. They've set taxpayers against people on welfare. It's divided country. It's made a terrible febrile atmosphere in country, and it's not nice at all. And we've got another 3 years of this, and God knows where this leads to. But this has got to be the worst government in living history at the moment. Great show, Mark. Carry on the good work.
Thank you, Kevin. There is no Morning Glory. There is no talk without you. Your calls, your texts, and just your company on the radio and, of course, on TV as well. If you want to watch the show, head to YouTube and search Talk and Up We Pop. Is this government dangerous? Mary is in Hemel Hempstead. Good morning, Mary.
Good morning, Mark. Extremely dangerous. The most dangerous government I've known, because they're not pleasing anybody. This is the problem. But what I phoned up about was the farmers' protest.
Yes. Well, they have, of course, received no reprieve from Rachel Reeves. This inheritance tax raid is going to see the disappearance of many small farms that have been in the family for generations.
Yeah, but you see, they also come under the small businesses. Well, the small businesses are also suffering. But when they had this protest the other day, I asked myself, where are all their backup? Where are the hunting fraternity, the shooting fraternity, gamblers, the fishermen? When the fields are covered with solar farms, are the ramblers going to go wandering about in that? Will they be allowed to? There won't be any farmland. So where is the backup? And why didn't the small business operators shut shop for one day and also go with them?
Most definitely. Do you sometimes feel, Mary, that this government are dismantling the entire country? We've got the open borders experiment. Those illegal numbers have exploded under Sir Keir Starmer. We've got net zero, which is basically going to make us energy dependent on international bad actors. You've got the assault on our justice system with the scrapping of jury trials. You've got the sell-off of Chagos Islands, which is strategically significant for the United Kingdom. Do you just feel like they are dismantling the entire country and what it stands for?
Definitely, and I wouldn't be surprised if over the period of the 3 years they've also got rid of the Falklands and Gibraltar, and you don't know what they're going to do next. And they're really like on steroids to distract themselves. But what I don't understand is that, are they then going to leave the country when they've destroyed it, or are they living here? And I mean, the benefit thing that they've given for this child benefit thing.
Lifting the 2-child benefit cap, correct.
Yeah, well, as the majority now, it turns out, of the population that are having many children are people from ethnic minorities, it's not going to benefit, again, the British person or the British families. It's going to benefit the people who are not of this country. And everything is directed outside of this country and not into this country.
Where do you think we will be by the time of the next general election, Mary? Because I've been telling my viewers and listeners that change is coming, bring popcorn. But I'm just concerned there may not be a country to rescue when it comes to it.
I feel exactly the same. I feel that by the end of their term, we will probably be back in the EU. We will probably have very few. The whole demographics will have changed. We will be the British people will be a minority. We'll have very little say. As you say, there's going to be no trial. The banning of or stopping the jury trials for less serious crimes. So that means people like Just Stop Oil and all these other protesters, they're going to get away with murder because a magistrate will probably be on their side.
Yeah.
I just weep for it.
Mary, I can't put it better myself. Thank you so much for that, and have a good Friday. We'll catch up soon. Justin is in Sheffield at 7:52 in the morning on Morning Glory. Good morning, Justin, in the Steel City of Sheffield. How are things in the Steel City this morning?
Well, it isn't raining, so we've got to be great.
Yeah, that's a heat wave in Sheffield, isn't it? Justin, is this government dangerous?
Well, it is. It goes without saying, you know that it's an appalling government. God knows what they're going to do, and they're going to be in for 3 years. All these people saying that they're going to be out. in the next 2 or 3 years, they're just talking rubbish. They obviously don't understand how the British parliamentary system works.
They've got a majority, and turkeys don't vote for Christmas.
Exactly. But why I'm phoning you up is when you were saying that we should be paying our own
care workers, people in the public sector, more.
Thousands of pounds more rather than getting immigrants in. Well, I would take issue with you there.
Go on.
And I think there would be millions of people in this country who are paying tens of thousands of pounds a year to keep their aged relatives in care homes, who would be very, very upset if they were told their fees were all going to go up by 25, 30, 40, 50%. I mean, this whole idea that, we've got to restrict immigration, because immigration tends to suppress wages. Well, I'm sorry, but the suppression of wages is a good thing because that keeps inflation down, and inflation is the worst thing for an economy and for people.
Of course it is. And it was completely ignored by the Chancellor on Wednesday. It's a tax on everyone, affecting the poorest most egregiously. Well, she celebrated the fact that it's going to drop by 0.5% in a year and still be almost double the Bank of England target.
It is. Now, while I've actually got you on, you know this thing about the 2-child benefit cap?
Yeah.
Now, I am in two minds about that. I can see it, yes, I can see it from like one point of view. But what do you say to someone who's got a good job, right? So they have 3-4 kids, and then they get fired, or the main breadwinner dies, or his business goes bust. What about that? That's a slightly different case, isn't it?
Well, it's interesting you say that because, of course, the reform proposal is to lift the 2-child benefit cap, but only for those in work, which is possibly a landing ground for this policy.
What you mean for people who were in work and then they get sacked, or they?
Well, there may be some kind of parachute for those that have had a job looking for a new job. That perhaps, those benefits will be ongoing. But I think ultimately, Justin, I don't think it's right, because I think that most people listening to this show and watching it had to think very carefully about how many kids they can afford. And you still have to factor in that you may at some point lose your job. Also, we've been told it's unaffordable. The country's in the red, Justin. It's all very well if we've got 4%, 5% growth.
I do agree with you that you definitely be cutting back on loads of a government expenditure, and in a way I'm in favour of the 2-child benefit cap, but I keep coming back to this. What about people who were wealthy and then they decided to have the kids and then things changed for them and they were no longer wealthy? I mean, you know what I mean?
I mean, I hear what you're saying, Justin. That's life. Before I let you go, just on the social care point, my argument is that if somebody is imported into the country in order to plug a staffing crisis within social care, there's still going to be a net cost to the Treasury of hundreds of thousands of pounds across the course of their lifetime. The reason why is because they come to the UK to work in a care home, but they'll still need in-work benefits, they'll need the NHS, they'll need schooling, they'll need a pension, and so you're still down several £100,000 following their contribution. My argument is it would be cheaper even for the government to subsidise the public sector, subsidise the care homes, in order that those who can work in this country, who are British citizens, can do so. We'd save a fortune, Justin.
Yeah, and then we'd all be paying for it in our tax.
Yes, but if you look at the difference between the cost of someone coming here just to fill the staffing gap versus the cost of subsidising better wages in the care sector, I think you'll find that that's less than the cost of somebody coming here in the first place.
Well, apart from the fact that if you're saying that, like, if what you basically
do the math, Justin. You're a clever man.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that if your argument is that someone in a job that doesn't pay very much is a net cost to the country, then that applies to people who are here.
Yes, but they're already here. We're importing. Yeah. We're importing every year more people. I mean, how about this, Justin? If you are working, let's say, in social care, you're someone that's immigrated into the country. If you live to 90, the net cost to the taxpayer is £1 million. Right? That's going to be a lot more than paying care workers more substantially.
Well, it's a bit of an insoluble one, isn't it? The care home business because and it's going to get worse as well as people live longer.
Well, it is. But you know, Justin, I appreciate you probing some of my positions on the show because that's what it's all about. You're a wise man. And Justin, we'll catch up again soon. Thank you so much for your company. It is 7:57 and you are listening to Morning Glory. Good morning, Mark. Starmer is a desperate man, hungry for more power. Hearing that this government is dangerous is good news for him, as he wants to be feared. Of course, Labour are a danger, says Steve, but so too are the Tories. The leaders are so captured by this one world, one government ideology, it's frightening. The few shall have everything. We, the many, shall have nothing. It's all smoke and mirrors. It's the young I feel sorry for. They're sleepwalking into a nightmare. As a doctor of the WEF once said, give them drugs and games, says Steve. Steve very worried there about the globalist nature of this particular administration. Hi, Margaret. Hi, Mark. This is Margaret in Yorkshire. The Tories have a wet core. They had every chance and did not take it. Kemi attacks the person, not the policy. It's nasty, cheap and easy. When bearded, her reply, so I read, well, they did it first. Really? Playground stuff. Talk is easy. They're good at that. We need core change. Yes, Labour are dangerous. They are ideologically hard left with no feeling for their own nation. They just follow their socialist mantra. Well, I think you raise a good point there. Of course, they're dangerous, says Ian. This government are making the country dangerous with migrants, street crime, making people poorer and also removing the happy factor, causing more stress and more benefits. Ian in Essex talking sense. They keep those opinions coming. Is this government dangerous? That is the topic of today's Dolan's Dispatch at 9 a.m. But next up, the Home Office have lost 50,000 illegal immigrants. The man who exposed this scandal, Rupert Lowe, is next.
Across the UK, on DAB+, On YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Top of the morning to you. Happy Friday, one and all. Coming up to 3 minutes past 8. I'm Mark Dolan. This is Morning Glory. A big 2 hours to come. And 2 days and 2 U-turns, having broken a manifesto promise not to increase taxes on working Brits. Sir Keir Starmer is to tear up Angela Rayner's workers' rights bill following an outcry from industry. Will the ginger growler herself, Angela Rayner, use this U-turn as the basis of a leadership effort to unseat Sir Keir Starmer? And with the government's plans in disarray, just who is running Britain? Backbench Labour MPs, the unions, it's certainly not Starmer who has lost control of his administration. Will bring reaction. Meanwhile, the brain drain from Starmer's socialist chaos continues. A record 110,000 people seek asylum as the most talented young Brits leave in their droves. We'll be looking at the exodus of young workers fleeing high-tax Britain. Meanwhile, mastermind himself, David Lammy's efforts to scrap jury trials hit the buffers. And has this Labour government become more left-wing than anyone might have feared? And is this government dangerous? That's the topic of today's Dolan's Dispatch. A caller on the show just a couple of days ago was criticising the economic policies, the open borders, net zero. And he said, Mark, this government is dangerous. Right? Are they dangerous? Let me know your thoughts. 0344 499 1000. Text the word talk in your message to 87222 and let me know your thoughts on this current administration. How bad could things get? What are your thoughts about the future? What are your fears? We know change is coming, but can we survive the next 2 or 3 years of this administration? It's all about your opinions. If you're listening to the show on the radio, great to have your company. You can watch us on YouTube. Just head to YouTube, search Talk, and up we pop. And as the saying goes, let's talk. And we'll kick off the hour with your thoughts on the latest figures around immigration. Legal net migration, 200,000, still far too high, and record levels of illegal crossings. This is Hev in Cheshire. Take it away, Hev.
As far as migration is concerned, anybody that comes into the country legally is illegal. They should be detained and kept away from the general public until their case has been sorted. Anybody who wants to come here legally, anybody can come. Anybody can come. I think we should work on them all, if and only if they can support themselves and they have something to offer this country. Otherwise, no. You know, we don't want people coming in and using our country. We want to use other people to better this country.
A brilliant voice note. Have common sense in spades there. What are your thoughts about this administration? Are this government dangerous? 0344 499 1000. Leave me a voice note. Send me a text. Well, let me tell you that what is dangerous is the fact that the Home Office have lost contact with over 50,000 illegal immigrants. A story exposed by the bold and fearless Rupert Lowe, independent MP and leader of Restore Britain. He joins us now. Good morning, Rupert.
Morning, Mark.
How did this story cross your radar?
Well, the thing that's really got me incandescent this morning, as you probably saw, it's not just these 53,000, I don't call them asylum seekers, economic migrants who have absconded from the asylum hotels. The thing that's really got me vexed this morning is the fact that 736 foreign criminals who are about to be deported have absconded before deportation. And it's worse than that, Mark, because through my parliamentary office, as you know, which is a lot of the source for the information, as an MP, I can ask various government departments for information. I'm allowed 20 questions a day. As you know, I've been making full use of that. And we uncovered this particular issue because we asked loads of questions, and we specifically asked about how many foreign prisoners have absconded before deportation. We've actually asked that question, and we were told there was no data available. Now, because of what we're doing, we've got multiple whistleblowers from within the Foreign Office, the Home Office, a lot of government departments, because there are still, as I hope there would be, a bedrock of very decent people working in Britain. And we've set up a whistleblowing line that completely protects them, run by a chap called Lewis Cocking, so by Lewis Brackpool. So we ultimately, I was told a lie by Alex Norris, from the Home Office, that they didn't hold the data. We now know they do hold the data, and they haven't disputed it. Equally, they haven't disputed the data that you just mentioned on the 53,000 people who've absconded from asylum hotels. Now, the Home Office's job, its primary role, is to keep the British people safe. That's its job. That's what it states in its, if you like, sort of modus operandi.
Yeah.
And I would argue that letting 736 foreign criminals abscond before deportation is at best, I mean, how do you describe it? It's just extraordinary. And I think, you know, until people who are in charge of this start to go to prison for allowing this sort of thing to happen, it's going to go on, Mark. It is such a dereliction of duty that, you know, it is almost treason. I just can't believe that can happen. How does it happen?
It's gross misconduct in office, isn't it?
And then lying to an elected MP. I mean, the MPs I know have been undermined and denigrated by the quangos, the regulators, by all of the various organs of the state, the judiciary, which is now not accountable to Parliament as it used to be, to the Lord Chancellor. I think it's still unacceptable. If MPs ask questions, they are, after all, the elected representatives of the British people. Most decisions, or all decisions, in my view, should come from the House of Commons. Those are the people's elected representatives. They should be omnipotent. And we've been undermined. But even so, to lie to an MP from the Home Office, in this case, I mean, what do you think? I think it's quite extraordinary, and I think heads should roll.
Most definitely. And of course, the establishment simply want to cover up the truth, the scandalous truth about immigration in this country.
Well, a lot of the MPs, as you know, have been in the civil service, and I think they've lost sight of the fact that they should be serving the British people. They shouldn't be hiding information from the people. The more transparent government is, Mark, the more functional it is. It's a bit like Thomas Jefferson says about tax. The more transparent tax is, the more people understand what they're paying it for. And I think people don't mind paying tax as long as it's not being misused. But, I mean, I'd advise all of your listeners, go and look at Donald Trump's tweet this morning. He's put out an absolute stonker of a tweet that I would advise everybody to go and read. And that's what needs to happen here. You know, people who come here, who don't respect our country, who behave badly, they should go straight away. They should be deported. And I don't buy into this sort of, you know, woke DEI agenda, which says we should be providing sort of global welfare to everybody. No, the primary role of this country is to protect the interests of those people who live here, who pay tax here, and who built this country up. And in 2016, everybody voted to take back their own sovereignty. And frankly, the establishment have forgotten that it's the British people who basically decide at elections every 5 years, and they are the ones who ultimately are masters. The trouble is, they've been undermined, like the MPs, and there is an agenda. I mean, it's an extraordinary agenda. It's almost too incredible to believe that they're letting in all these people who are basically undermining everything that we've achieved over thousands of years of our history.
What are your thoughts going forward? Because there may be a change to our borders policy at the next election. Do you have hope that things can be turned around in this country, Rupert?
No, Mark, I think we've got to do it now. That's why I've set up a movement called Restore Britain, and it's a lightning rod for all sensible English, British people who share my view that it's got to change now. I think, as you said in your introduction, and by the way, there was more common sense in from the lady who called in just now than I've heard in Parliament in 18 months. So at the end of the day, no, what we need is change now. And if people believe and share that view with us, they need to sign up for Restore Britain, because the only way I can see that happening is if we get a mass movement of sensible British people who actually want their country back. And that has to be done through, obviously, a lawful legal organisation that actually shows these deficient government bodies, these sort of what I call the rule of lawyers, not the rule of law, all of these malign people who are serving themselves, not the British people. What we need to do is we need a movement that's going to actually overturn that, but start to change things now through a huge movement of consensus that we don't want what's happening.
And this goes, Rupert, just to interrupt you. Go on.
By 29, Mark, I think it could be too late.
29, it could be too late. And this goes beyond party politics, doesn't it? Because it seems that our establishment is rotten to the core. Not just the political class, the administration class, the bureaucracy, the whole thing, the BBC, you name it, it needs not just an overhaul, but axing all together and starting again.
Well, first of all, it's completely rotten. And secondly, there are far too many of them, Mark. And I honestly, for the life of me, don't know what most of them do.
Yeah.
And you know, if you look at what Elon Musk, and by the way, he has basically allowed a lot of what's happening to happen by turning X into a free speech platform, which has given people the ability to actually speak logically and commonsensically and appeal to the British people to fight, because there's not enough fight in Britain now. People need to stand up and start, you know, actually taking back control of their country. They're far too polite and meek, and obviously they've got to do it all lawfully. We don't want any unpleasantness, but the fact of the matter is, your country, or everybody's country, my country, is slipping away from us every day, and we haven't got long now. It's getting very bad. As Elon Musk said, if we're not careful, we're going to become a prison island with no jury trials, you know, an omnipotent bureaucracy, which ultimately puts itself at the top of the agenda, not the British people. And that's what's happening every day.
With the distressing news revealed in today's Telegraph, Rupert, that a net 110,000 British people aged 16 to 34 emigrated in the new year to March, according to the ONS, accounting for 2/3 of all departing Britons. So we're importing low-skilled individuals who don't necessarily share our culture or speak the language, who will plug the gap in our public sector. Meanwhile, our brightest and youngest are fleeing the country.
Well, it's actually the reverse of what we should be doing with migration. A small amount of targeted migration is very good for a country. What we've got now, Mark, is we've got our rainmakers. We've got, quite apart from the people who are rich, and Labour's in self-denial about this, they don't think people are leaving. I can tell you definitively, loads of my friends have left. They have gone. They cannot stomach this anymore. And if you just look at what Rachel Reeves did yesterday, and we can talk about that if you want in a minute, but
yeah,
I honestly, we've got damaging migration taking place, because we're importing people of low grade who basically don't share our culture, and we're losing rainmakers who are taking money with them. But most importantly, they're taking brain power with them. And you can't replace brain power. Brain power is not a piece of printed paper which we all transact business with. Brain power is for real. And we're losing those people every day they're going. And it's going to be very difficult to get them back, particularly if we have a country which is divided. We have sort of pockets of unintegrated people from different religions, different creeds, different colours, different beliefs. You know, we are going to be a divided nation. I don't want that. You know, I understand the young people. I'm with the young people. They're the future. And at the end of the day, if you look with a cold towel on your head as a young person at this country, you say to yourself, how am I going to buy myself a home, build myself a career, you know, bring up my children sensibly and look after them in a safe environment? You'd say, you know, well, take one look at Sadiq Khan's war zone, London, and you definitely leave straight away. Now, you know, we don't want our best young people leaving, but I don't blame them for leaving, because there are countries, you know, I go to Australia a lot. They're going the same way as us, but they're nowhere near as far down the track. And I think that their ruling class does actually put the interests of the Australian people at the top of the agenda. It's a bit of a nanny state. It's a great place to live. You've got many other countries in the world who are welcoming the very able British, English people, because we have got the best people, Mark. Throughout history, we've actually had migration which has made us stronger. So from, right from time immemorial, the Romans, they integrated. Then you had the Vikings and the Nordics, they integrated. Then you had obviously the Norman conquest, they've integrated. Then you've had basically the Huguenots, the Protestant Huguenots who were persecuted in France, they've integrated. Then you had the Jews. Many Jews were persecuted across Europe to a far greater extent than they were here. They've integrated. And these were the most able people in Europe. And obviously you've got a lot of very able people fleeing, the German situation in the Second World War, before the Second World War, during the 30s. So we have benefited, but actually now what we've got is we have got a damaging situation where we're importing people who of low skill, low grade cultural difference, and we are exporting our best. The elite are going, and they're going in huge numbers.
It doesn't end well. We've got the post from Donald Trump, the President of the United States, posted on his own social media site, Truth Social. And he writes, the official United States foreign population stands at 53 million people, most of whom are on welfare from failed nations or from prisons, mental institutions, gangs or drug cartels. They and their children are supported through massive payments from patriotic American citizens who, because of their beautiful hearts, do not want to openly complain or cause trouble in any way, shape or form. They put up with what has happened to our country, but it's eating them alive to do so. A migrant earning $30,000 with a green card will get roughly $50,000 in yearly benefits for their family. The real migrant population is much higher. This refugee burden is a leading cause of social dysfunction in America, something that did not exist after World War II. Failed schools, high crime, urban decay, overcrowded hospitals, housing shortages and large deficits. As an example, hundreds of thousands of refugees from Somalia are completely taking over the once great state of Minnesota. Somalian gangs are roaming the streets looking for prey as our wonderful people stay locked in their apartments and houses, hoping against hope that they will be left alone. Rupert, do you have Trump envy?
I think he's stated what's happening here, Mark, and I don't know for the life of me, what Labour think they're doing, but I have to say that budget was extraordinary. I mean, the actual economic numbers were, and this goes to the point, were better than everybody thought, and yet she's breached all of her manifesto pledges. She has raised taxes by freezing tax thresholds going forward. She's basically all the OBR, and by the way, the OBR is the most efficient organisation that's ever walked the planet, quite apart from leaking the budget early by accident.
Their projections are always wrong.
Always wrong. So why are they wired into all the decision making? But the point is, what she's done is she has taxed productive Britain to fund the indolent. And ultimately, if you tax enterprise and you credit indolence, then you're basically slowly signing your own death warrant.
Rupert, go on.
But I think, Mark, I've got to say this. I think Labour has a Fabian agenda to create chaos because they think that's going to mean that Labour keeps being re-elected. I think that they're deeply misguided.
And briefly, Rupert, they might like an economic crash because that would allow them to have an emergency budget and an even more leftist agenda rolled out.
It's going to get worse and worse, Mark. I mean, you look at this workers' rights stuff that you started the program with. I mean, how are you going to employ anybody when you from day one you can't get rid of them if they're no good? And by the way, there are people who are hired for whatever reason they're not good enough. They shouldn't be forced to keep them. These are people who are running proper businesses, and that workers' rights bill is going to put a minimum of $5 billion a year on people running businesses. I've given an instruction to all my businesses. We don't want to employ anyone we don't need to employ. So what's going to happen is we're going to avoid employing people. We will increasingly use AI where we can. And in the end, these misguided trade unionists who lie at the heart of Labour, who've never done anything productive or creative in their lives, they pork barrel on the back of their members. At the end of the day, they are slowly destroying the British economy, the private enterprise, the actual bedrock of what drives our wealth. And until we reverse this sort of what I call vicious circle, it's just going to keep getting worse. And I love Britain, and I don't want to be too negative, but I can't see very much to be too excited about right now. And I think the fact everybody's leaving shows you that they agree with me.
Rupert, just rapid fire if we can. We know you have to run as well. Can I just ask you two things? Do we focus excessively on immigration? It's not a magic wand, is it, to fix all the problems in this country?
Immigration is our biggest issue. We had a vote amongst our members, and we produced a wonderful booklet on how we solve the problem, i.e. the causes of the problem.
But is it disproportionately focused upon? That's the criticism made by some.
It's a massive issue, Mark, and it's undermining everything that we stand for. And with the current leadership, it's being fostered and it's being effectively encouraged. It could be stopped with the will to do so. We need some of that Trump tweet. Some of that needs to be exported. As I did a Tucker Carlson interview on, which is I think out on Monday, and ultimately, what we need is the colonies, the Americans who used a bit of our sort of our freedom and constitutional sort of structure. We exported it to them, and we now need them to export to us some common sense, some logic, and a bit of sort of national pride. We do need their help, Mark, because we are going badly wrong.
A sobering message, Rupert. Good to have you on the show. Look forward to our next interview. Rupert Lowe is an independent MP and the leader of Restore Britain. Is this government dangerous? More on that next.
Big news coming this December. Our talkTV app is moving to the Talk app. You can watch, catch up and listen to all your favourite shows and podcasts anytime, anywhere, all on the Talk app. From Monday, 1st of December, the talkTV app will no longer exist, so don't miss out. So head over to your App Store or Google Play and search Talk now.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Top of the morning to you. Happy Friday, one and all. It's 8:28. This is Morning Glory, and the government have lost. Oh my goodness, wouldn't it be good if I just plugged myself in? You see, that's wonderful proof that this is live. By the way, you can hear us on the radio. If you want to watch the show, head to YouTube and search Talk, and up we pop. A very, very busy hour and a half to come. Dolan's dispatch at 9 a.m. I'm not pulling my punches. It's about this government. It might get me cancelled. Good. Time to point out just how badly things are going wrong. Can we survive this political crisis that we're currently in? I'll be giving my verdict in exactly 30 minutes' time at the top of the hour. The government have lost 50,000 illegal immigrants. In fact, 53,298 to be precise. And as just pointed out there by the leader of Restore Britain, 736 of those were earmarked for deportation, and they've absconded. They are criminals who we tried to deport, almost 1,000 men who are roaming Britain's streets. You know, the government's got two things, right? We pay our taxes. It's got two jobs, which is to keep law and order on the streets and to protect our national boundaries. That is it. Those are the two things that we pay our taxes to do fundamentally, and they are failing at both. David says, good morning, Mark. If the government have lost 50,000 migrants and they get lost in the system for years, what happens if they have children, then apply for indefinite leave to remain? Won't they be legally able to stay as they have British-born children? Most likely, David, in this rather counterintuitive, bonkers pyramid scheme that is British society. Let's get the views now of Mark Littlewood, director of the Popular Conservatism organisation. Mark, welcome to Morning Glory.
Good morning, Mark. Great to be with you.
Good to see you. Is this government dangerous?
Oh, I think beyond dangerous. I mean, the real problem you've highlighted just there about migration statistics, Mark, but it's incompetent. I mean, it does increasingly seem, doesn't it, that virtually no part of our governmental system works or operates. And this mishandled budget from Rachel Reeves is, I'm afraid, going to make things even worse. I think there's quite a lot of pie-in-the-sky ideas about the revenue she's going to try and collect, which is going to be extraordinarily difficult to collect. So we're increasingly living in a country where we all pretend that the government functions, but it barely does and is getting worse by the day. Whilst our taxes go up, our security goes down and our economy flatlines. A pretty grim state of affairs, I'm afraid, Mark, and one I expect to get worse over the next year or two.
If you kill our energy supply, which is what net zero is doing, if you tank the economy, that's actually a national security issue, isn't it?
Yes, you're probably right that it is. I mean, our energy strategy is largely non-existent, extremely confusing, and insofar as you can derive what they're attempting to achieve, a ludicrous exercise in self-harm. We also, I strongly suspect now, to give a rather nerdy economist view of matters, we are on the wrong side of the Laffer curve on a good number of taxes. That is to say, at some point when you dial up tax rates, you actually get less revenue because you deter activity. If you keep dialing up, for example, national insurance, to give an example, you'll find that fewer people are employed, therefore less revenue comes in, more businesses shutter up. So we're really operating on a fantasy at the moment in terms of how the British economy is actually operating. And we'll almost certainly, Mark, I think, be back in a year's time with another remarkable black hole of 10, 20, 30, 40 billion pounds that the government will then try and fill again by raising taxes yet again, thereby perpetuating the doom loop that businesses will start to close, growth will go down, and the black hole will never be filled.
Well, that's right, because low growth and high inflation are the equivalent of economic quicksand, are they not?
Yes, that's exactly right. I mean, you'll remember, I mean, it seems like a generation ago, doesn't it, Mark, that we were told that this government was going to be laser focused on growth, that economic growth was its #1 priority. Now, if you can get economic growth into the system, it doesn't solve all of your problems. Of course it doesn't. But my God, it eases them. If we could start growing the economy at the sort of levels that we were used to a generation ago, maybe at 3% a year, suddenly everything gets a lot better. People are getting pay rises, so they don't need to be on so much welfare. Taxes are flooding into the Treasury rather than being disappointingly low. But the OBR's scoring, and my judgment as well, is there is not a single measure in the budget that will in any way encourage growth. So the economy is flatlining. But you know what? It's worse than that, because the overall economy is maybe going to grow by about, I don't know, 1% per annum for sake of argument. But the population is growing by at least that. So we're all in our own individual recessions, because the UK as a whole might have more money, but there's more people to divide that money between. So in essence, nobody's getting any richer. And I mean, living under this government feels a bit like being in a loveless and abusive marriage with absolutely no prospect of divorce. It's all extremely depressing.
It is indeed. And if you look at the cementing of this cult of welfarism that was celebrated so enthusiastically on Wednesday, if you look at the cost of borrowing, if you look at the national debt, if you look at the deficit, if you look at the low growth, the issue we've got, inflation as well, of course, Mark, is that we are very vulnerable to any potential economic shocks going forward.
Yeah, that's definitely the case. So there's an awful lot of wishful thinking that the future will be bright and there won't be events to knock us off course. And more likely than not, when events happen, typically, unfortunately, they tend to be on the downside of the ledger. You know, war breaks out, or there's some natural disaster, or some economy flatlines elsewhere with a knock-on effect to Britain. And we haven't insulated ourselves against this at all. We've been pretending, I mean, I have to say previous to this government, but basically for the last 25 years, we've been pretending or hoping that nothing will knock us off course. So we haven't built up any reserves. Were there to be another pandemic and us to foolishly go into lockdown again, we haven't got the money to pay for that. So we've run out of road in terms of any sort of insurance strategy, I'm afraid. We're basically now living on tick, and we're hoping for an upside miracle, whereas we all know, Mark, sadly, there tends to be downside events rather than upside miracles in order to help our economy along. It's all very, very bleak. I'm sorry to share that with you.
Who would want to take over in 3 years' time? They're going to need most of the term of the next parliament just to fix things before they can do anything positive.
Yes, I think that's right. I mean, Britain now needs an enormous repair job. We've got to get back to some basic truths. You've already underscored the welfare state spiralling out of control. I mean, by the end of this parliament, we're now set to spend about £400 billion a year just on cash handouts of one form or another, be that state pensions, child benefit, housing benefit, or the like. The next government's going to have to get back to the founding principles of the welfare state. That when it was set up, the idea wasn't that there would be colossal amounts of money sloshing around like this, usually misdirected. It was that the welfare state was there to help you for a short period of time at subsistent levels of support. Well, that spiraled completely out of control. And it's going to be messy and difficult to get that down, but it's going to be a necessity in order to get government spending down. We've got to get back to those founding principles of the welfare state. We've got to start not just balancing the books, Mark, but actually running budget surpluses. So we've got a little bit of a buffer zone and we can start paying down the national debt, not just servicing it. Whoever forms the next government is going to have one hell of a task. I think the only piece of good news, you know what, is that the British public, I think, are several stages ahead of the political elite in realising that things are going wrong and that very substantial surgery is going to be required. But I fear none of that surgery is going to happen under the present regime.
Mark, a delight to have you on the show. Look forward to speaking to you soon. Mark Littlewood is the Director of Popular Conservatism UK. Is this government dangerous? Is that going too far? That is the topic of today's Dolan's Dispatch. Have I lost the plot? Is dangerous the right word? Let me know. Send me a voice note. Give me a call 03444 99 1000. If it is dangerous, why? And how does this play out? Give me your predictions for the next year or two ahead. But next up, the French are bringing back national service. Should we do the same? This is Morning Glory.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Black Friday today, isn't it? Will you be looking for a bargain? I doubt it. I don't think anyone's got the cash for Black Friday this year. Every Friday is Black Friday at the moment. Is this government dangerous? 0344 499 1000. That's Dolan's dispatch in 20 minutes' time. I promise you won't want to miss it. It is 8:40. You're listening to Morning Glory. A lot to come in the next hour and 20 minutes. But a big development on the continent. The French are to bring back national service. Should we do the same? Let's get the views of Andrew Fox, Senior Fellow at the Henry Jackson Society and co-host of the popular Brink podcast. Good morning, Andrew.
Good morning, Mark.
Yes, the French to reintroduce military service. Should we do the same?
Well, it's very expensive. That's the first thing I think we need to flag up, is if we're serious about doing this, it's going to cost a huge amount of money. Those recruited soldiers will have to be trained, housed. They'll need vehicles to travel in. They'll need uniforms to wear. They'll need weapons to fire.
Yeah.
And we currently don't have the stocks for all that. So we'll need, if we decide to do that, a huge amount of investment from the government.
Of course. And where will the money come from? Do you think it would be good for the young generation to perhaps serve for a year or two in the military? Would it teach them a bit of discipline, a bit of community, a bit of belonging, some traditional values?
I mean, certainly I found all of those things in my time in the army. The question is what we'd use them for. I mean, if we're looking at Eastern Europe and NATO's eastern flank with Ukraine, it doesn't look realistic right now that we would deploy British troops in large numbers to go and defend Ukraine. They seem to be holding their own quite well as it stands. But one lesson we do learn is that should it come to that in one of our NATO allies, if they get invaded by Russia, it does require mass. And if we don't have any mass in the British Army, we have 69,000 soldiers, of which, including the reserves, no more than 23,000 are actually combat soldiers. Our armed forces are tiny, and anything we can do to build up our national resilience, should it come to the worst, is probably a good thing.
Rishi Sunak proposed this policy before the election, but it didn't really move the dial for him politically, did it? It didn't feel like a wildly popular policy.
I mean, they always say there's no votes in defence, and I don't think until you're actually at war, there are any votes in defence. People want schools, they want hospitals. They don't necessarily see the need right now for a huge British army. I think one variation of this that could be popular would be some kind of home service. Going out doing good deeds, cleaning up graffiti, adding to the community rather than being in uniform. That might be a very useful way of teaching some good life skills and some national pride to our young people. Not to mention the fact the biggest threat to us right now is things like sabotage, things like a bus of drones being driven across the channel and launched at, say, for example, Heathrow, and shutting down our national infrastructure. That's the real security threat. And having people on a sort of home-based resilience kind of recruitment drive might be a very good thing.
Now, my viewers and listeners would benefit from an end to the war in Ukraine, would they not, Andrew? Because if that war ends, you will gradually see a drop in the cost of wholesale energy prices, which will bring inflation down in this country and make it cheaper for my viewers and listeners to heat their homes. Plus, it would, of course, be an end to the tragic carnage that we've seen over several years. Is a peace deal in the offing? Are Donald Trump's hopes of some kind of sustained ceasefire before Christmas a little optimistic?
I think they are. I was on the front lines in Ukraine just 2 months ago, and you can see firsthand that appalling carnage and the toll it's taking on the Ukrainian people. But unfortunately, Mr. Trump's deal is so far from anything that would be remotely acceptable, not only to Kiev, but also to European leaders. That there needs to be a major rethink, and there is a long way diplomatically to go before they can reach a deal that's acceptable.
I mean, fair play to Trump. He's doing his best. He's trying to end this war. But the million-dollar question is, does Putin want peace?
Well, we've seen Mr. Putin sign and break a large number of deals over the last 10, 15 years. Sticking to peace deals is not something that he has shown a huge amount of willingness to do. And that really touches the core of this issue. And that is that any deal has to be one that is fully reinforced by security guarantees to make sure that Mr. Putin doesn't, for example, continue his operations in Transnistria, in Georgia, the incursions that we've seen in Poland, the arms caches that have been discovered in the Baltic countries, all of these things point towards a Putin that is expansionist, confident, and keen to take this fight forward in future. And the guarantees have to be there to make sure that doesn't happen.
So how does this play out, do you think, Andrew? I mean, do you think we'll get good news by next year? Could this be the forever war?
Potentially. Look, there are certain red lines that can't be crossed on both sides, and unfortunately, they're not mutually compatible. Mr. Putin needs to come away from this war with something he can sell as a win after the enormous cost to the Russian economy and the sheer huge numbers of people from Russia who are now missing loved ones because they've gone to the front and been killed. Ukraine cannot afford to give up what they call the fortress belt of cities. That's the areas that Russia hasn't taken, but there is a strong defensive line. If that gets handed over to Russia, then of course that becomes an offensive line for future engagements in Ukraine. And until we get to a compromise somewhere around that particular sticking point, I think it'll be extremely hard to find a peace deal at the moment.
What do you make of Trump's leadership in this issue, given his success in Gaza?
Well, my personal take is that he hasn't had huge success in Gaza. I've been there 3 times during the war as well. I think he's frozen the conflict but hasn't found a solution to the conflict. And there are a lot of challenges where I think that deal will fail. And by the same token, I find this deal is far too generous to the Kremlin. It could have been written in Moscow. It gives Russia everything they want and treats Ukraine, who are, of course, the invaded party here. It treats them as the losers, and it's very punitive towards them. So I think Mr. Trump's deals, if we go back to Afghanistan and the deal he made there, he doesn't have a good record on the international stage with peace deals, and this doesn't look like a good one either.
Andrew, this current administration here in the UK, following Wednesday's budget, don't seem to understand that economic prosperity and national security are critically interlinked. Is this government dangerous?
I think so. There are clear, credible threats at the moment to the UK's security. Just in the last couple of weeks, we've seen Russian ships floating near critical underwater infrastructure. There is clearly an intent by our enemies to harm us, and defence needs to be taken seriously and funded. Not only because we have to defend ourselves if it comes to that, but also we are leaders in Europe, and prosperity comes from security. If we are so small and so ineffective that we lose that leadership role in both NATO and Europe when it comes to military matters, that is extremely damaging for not only our security, but also our prosperity.
Would you say, therefore, with the shark circling, with all these international threats and worries about our energy supply and all the rest of it, that maybe now wasn't the time to give welfare claimants a pay rise?
I mean, my personal take is that budget was horribly skewed towards the welfare budget. It was taking money from hardworking people and redistributing it to those who don't work. I think that sends the wrong message. I think there are better ways we could be spending our very limited amounts of national tax income at the moment. And this government's priorities are completely incorrect.
Andrew, thank you for your valuable time. Andrew Fox is a senior fellow at the Henry Jackson Society and the co-host of the excellent and rather compelling The Brink podcast. Is this government dangerous? Let me know your thoughts. 0344 499 1000. Dolan's dispatch is coming. This is Morning Glory.
Big news coming this December. Our talkTV app is moving to the Talk app. You can watch, catch up and listen to all your favourite shows and podcasts anytime, anywhere, all on the Talk app. From Monday, 1st of December, the talkTV app will no longer exist, so don't miss out. So head over to your App Store or Google Play and search Talk now.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
8:52, Morning Glory, Mark Dolan with you until 10 a.m. I'm delighted to have your company over the weekend. Do join me for weekend breakfast. So many more stories to get through between now and 10 a.m. And by the way, an interesting message here from Malcolm, who says, good morning, Mark. Why would we send our troops to Ukraine when we have our own stealth invasion crossing the channel every day and getting embedded into our towns and cities around this island? Well, Malcolm, you're not wrong about that. It is not fear-mongering. It is not misinformation to point out that the Home Office have lost track of 50,000 illegal immigrants. And as Rupert Lowe revealed on the show earlier, 700 foreign criminals who were earmarked for deportation have absconded, and they are residing somewhere in a town near you. What a scandal. Well, I think it's as a result of this dangerous government. That's today's Dolan's Dispatch in just a few minutes' time. But first, shall we have a bit of light relief? I think so.
90 minutes in 90 seconds from The Sun.
And Martin Blackburn is the Northwest sports reporter for The Sun newspaper. Good morning, Martin.
Good morning, Mark. How are you doing?
Very well. Someone that's having a worse week than Rachel Reeves, if it was possible, is Arne Slot, the Liverpool manager. Why?
Yeah. Well, since the international break finished, Mark, he's had 2 more defeats. So that's now 9 defeats in 12 games for Liverpool. And they're, of course, the reigning champions. They spent half a billion pounds strengthening the squad in the summer. But it seems to be going from bad to worse for them now, and there's speculation about his future in the newspapers this morning.
Well, indeed. I mean, you've got to ask how many games he's got left, Martin.
That's right, Mark. Yeah, they've got. They were beaten by PSV Eindhoven in the week at home, having lost to Nottingham Forest last Saturday, and now they go to West Ham on Sunday this week, and then Sunderland the following week. I think the word coming out of Anfield yesterday was that the owners, the board, are still with him, but it can't go on this, Mark. They can't keep losing games, slipping further and further down the table, going out of other competitions. And of course, all this time in the background is Jurgen Klopp. He's got a job with the Red Bull Group, but I think there's a lot of people at Liverpool who would love to see him back.
Well, indeed, and on a podcast recently, he said never say never in terms of a return, which is bad news. I mean, could he conceivably come to the rescue later this season?
It's not impossible, Mark. He like you say, he has mentioned that he could potentially do that. He's also said he doesn't miss management. He likes the way the new job he's got with the Red Bull Group, but he's got such a strong attachment to that club after sort of 9 years in charge of them, and the fans absolutely love him. So it's certainly one to keep an eye on, particularly if things keep going badly for Arne Slot. It's very unusual, Mark, for a team who've won the title to sack their manager, but it's not unheard of. Chelsea did it with Jose Mourinho back in 2015, and a year later, after that Leicester fairy tale, Claudio Ranieri only lasted till February, so it's not impossible.
No, he lost. So he won the season last season, which of course was a tremendous boon. Where are the fans at with regard to Slot?
I think there's got to be a little bit of patience, Mark. You know, I think there's a fair amount of goodwill amongst the fans towards him. It was an amazing achievement what he did last year to do that in his first season in English football. But like I say, you can't just keep losing and losing and losing. They're already out of the Carabao Cup. They've lost a couple of games in Europe, and now they're 11 points off the title, off the leaders Arsenal, which at this stage of the season, you know, we're only sort of a third of the way through, is a huge amount, really. So, yeah, I mean, they'll give him some goodwill, but I think there's one or two starting to wonder.
Martin, I look forward to your coverage in the paper over the weekend. Martin Blackburn is the Northwest sports reporter at the Sun newspaper, which is #1 for football. Is this government dangerous? Ian is in Cheshire. Good morning, Ian.
Good morning, Mark. How are you?
I'm very well. How would you answer that question? Is it overstating it to call them dangerous?
No, they're very dangerous. I've got a high street shop in Cheshire, and 99% of the people coming here tell me they are very dangerous for the high street. I'm the local hub here for a bit of counselling, a bit of talking to people, getting to know what's going on in their own lives. I have a very friendly, mainly over 65 retired demographic of purchasers here, and they say this government are really bad for the high street and they're bad for everybody. It's
such a concern, isn't it? How do you see things playing out in the years ahead before the next election? And what's going to happen?
I had a 5-10 year plan, and to be honest, I don't know if I'll go that far. I wanted to hand it down to somebody else in the years to come. But whether the high street will exist, we've got barber shops, we've got cafes, we've got
charity shops.
Charity shops, they pay 20% of the rateable value for business rates. You know what? I don't see me lasting 5 years, and probably when 2030, I'll be looking to get there.
It's such a tragedy, isn't it? I took a call yesterday from someone that said that they employ several people. They're going to downsize to a one-man operation because they've had enough.
I don't think I could do a one-man operation. I come in at 7 in the morning. I'm here till 6 at night, 6 days a week. I have a girl who comes in the afternoon to give me a bit of time off. Otherwise, I'd be doing 70 hours a week. I don't think I could. I'd rather employ somebody at 16, 17 years old, but then that would cost quite a bit of money as well. I pay the girl who comes in, well, she's my age, actually, in the early 60s. I pay her above the minimum wage. It's fantastic. But, you know, at the end of the day, I couldn't employ anybody else. Christmas is the key time. You know, the sales are pretty good at the moment, but January is going to fall off a cliff. Everyone knows it. The government don't back the high street. They don't back small businesses. I don't think the Conservative government did much for us. Esther McVeigh's been brilliant with us here, local MP at Tatton. She supports the businesses, and she may go to reform eventually, hopefully.
Yeah.
That'll be good for us. But the Labour Party are not into small businesses at all. And I think the high street, which is, you know, the local, it's about the people. The people will decide, obviously, what happens. And like I say, everybody comes in this shop. It's fantastic. They know the economy. But, you know, they're prepared to spend money to keep an independent business like me going. But they don't want the cafes. They don't particularly want the bars here. They just want independent shops where they can shop and get to know the owners, and you know, and share our common beliefs and ideas about, you know, our own individual lives.
There you go, Ian. Well said. Is this government dangerous? Dolan's dispatch next.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Top of the morning, coming up to 3 minutes past 9. Mark Dolan. This is Morning Glory. A big hour to come. 2 days and 2 U-turns, having broken a manifesto promise not to increase taxes on working Brits. Sir Keir Starmer is to tear up Angela Rayner's workers' rights bill, following an outcry from industry. Will Angela Rayner use this U-turn as the basis of a leadership campaign to challenge the Prime Minister? And with government plans in disarray following that budget, just who is running Britain? Backbench Labour MPs, the unions? It's certainly not Sir Keir Starmer. We will get analysis from across the political spectrum. Meanwhile, the brain drain continues. A record 110,000 people seek asylum in this country as the most talented young Brits leave in their droves. We'll be looking at the exodus of young workers fleeing high-tax Britain. Who could blame them? Meanwhile, mastermind himself, David Lammy's efforts to scrap jury trials hits the buffers. And wait for it, the Home Office have lost 53,000 illegal immigrants. They lost track, they've absconded. We don't know where they are, but they're coming to a town near you. With Rupert Lowe revealing just earlier in the show that over 700 people earmarked for deportation, illegal immigrants who have broken the law, who have absconded. Now, my question this morning is a simple one. Is this government dangerous? 0344 499 1000. Is that overstating it? Are they simply dealing with a legacy of 14 years of Tory misrule? Are they trying to fix the country from what they inherited? Let me know your thoughts. You can text the word talk in your message to 87222. Send us a voice note. And as the saying goes, let's talk. And as always at this time in the show, it's Dolan's Dispatch. A caller to this programme 2 days ago got it exactly right. In relation to the actions of this historically egregious government, he used one adjective. He used the word dangerous. And he's absolutely right. The endless borrowing is dangerous. It burdens future generations and imperils us in this ever-changing world, leaving us horribly exposed to unexpected shocks. And it leaves us in hock to a Rolex-wearing international financier elite who can pull the plug whenever they want. Wednesday's budget further cemented the cult of welfarism, which is dangerous because it encourages perfectly healthy members of the public to consider themselves victims whose lives must be bankrolled by those who endeavour, by those who take risks, by those who apply their talents, by those who believe in effort, by those who set their alarm early in the morning and go to work. Open borders are dangerous. A portion of these young men that pay gangsters to cross the channel, however small, pose a very real threat to the safety and well-being of our nation, of our people, of our community. And almost all of those people are an economic threat as they seek low-paid work in the black economy, and the people for whose welfare we will be responsible for decades to come. Contrary to the Liberal consensus, unchecked legal and illegal immigration is not good for the economy. It is provably a net loss, and that is dangerous. So when you and I work hard and get up in the morning and put a shift in, we're picking up the bill for the luxury beliefs of the Islington class, who will never come into contact with the grim reality of their virtuous views and their fashionable dinner party opinions, so typified by the attitude within this awful, egregious cabinet. A war on business is dangerous because it's the entrepreneurs who innovate, who invest, who mortgage their homes, who put in 16-hour days, year in, year out, who generate national income and who employ people so that the state doesn't have to. Wokery, political correctness, call it what you like, is dangerous. It's a clear and present threat to women, with blokes calling themselves a lady, entering female spaces and eviscerating women's hard-won sex-based rights. This dangerous Labour government stand for all of that and much besides. They stand for a Britain-hating narrative in the classroom and at university. They stand for the dumbing down of education and the emasculation of innovative and productive academy schools. This Labour government are the greatest proponents of net zero, which is dangerous. Rachel's black hole could have been filled by scrapping net zero altogether and then some. But this ideology, which is communism in a green rosette, is another dangerous element of this dangerous government, which is happy to deindustrialise the country and commit economic suicide for some abstract carbon goal, whilst China build coal-fired power stations for fun. Scrapping jury trials is a danger to justice and our democracy. Handing over the Chagos Islands to Chinese allies is a danger to our national security and our self-interest abroad. And Rachel Reeves's torching of the British economy and terrifying descent into socialism is a societal, infrastructural and national security threat. This government isn't just incompetent, it is dangerous too. Be afraid. Be very afraid. Is this government dangerous? 909, it is Morning Glory. Let me know your thoughts. Good morning, Mark. Yes, this government is incredibly dangerous. It's suicidal. It's destroying our country deliberately. Do you really think they care about this country and us? They're not listening to the people. They're deliberately ignoring us. But look at the wages they're on, the gold-plated pensions when booted out. Would you care if you do a good or a bad job and then they'll leave the country to live up the high life somewhere else, whilst this country falls and burns? That's Kevin in Macclesfield. Thank you for that, Kelvin. Listen, very, very big debate this morning we're having. Is this government dangerous? That is the talking point. If you disagree, is it a legacy of 14 years of misrule by the part of the Tories? Let's get the views of Lord Walney, former government advisor on political violence and disruption and former Labour MP. Good morning, Lord Walney. Welcome to Morning Glory. Is this government dangerous?
Well, good morning, Mark. I think you may have had one too many fancy lattes this morning. Look, I think the government needs to do significantly more to deal with the dangers that are inherent in the world in this global economy. I don't think it is itself inherently the problem, but I am going to be honest, as a Labour supporter overall, these were not the choices that I would have made in this budget. And I do think that it has made perhaps more difficult, certainly more urgent now, to tackle some of the challenges like the need to greatly increase our defence budget. That's still a commitment from this government. However, it hasn't really addressed it in this budget. It's chosen other priorities, which are important. Tackling child poverty is, of course, important. But I think everyone, all of your listeners, all of your viewers know the state of the public finances, how difficult it is, the fact that the economy is not growing. And yes, I would have liked to have seen much more in this budget to address that need to help businesses grow, which ultimately is going to be the main thing which enables us to tackle child poverty and all of the noble things which the government is, to its credit, trying to do something about.
Now, Lord Walney, I welcome the pushback to today's Dolan's dispatch. It's only there to spark a debate. But let's look at that word dangerous, which is not a word I used. It's a word used by one of my listeners to the show who was responding to Rachel Reeves's plans for the economy and said the whole thing is dangerous. The bottom line is that open borders are dangerous, with a record number of people having entered the country illegally since the Prime Minister took office, in spite of promising to smash the gangs. Imperiling our energy supply with net zero is dangerous because it makes us reliant on international bad actors to keep the lights on. And living beyond our means, which is the very definition of Wednesday's budget, is dangerous too.
All of these things are dangerous things in the world.
Well, they're dangerous things here. They're not dangerous in America.
But just give me a moment. Just go on. The danger of climate chaos is enormous for future generations. Look, I recognise the tension that you have, and yes, absolutely, we must not end up relying on foreign oil. And again, I don't think they've got the balance quite right. I really hope that the signals that are coming out, not officially yet, but are coming out of government, that they're rethinking the real mistake to cut off all future oil extraction from the North Sea. I hope they're thinking that. But I do recognise that the world that we live in is not of this country's making, it's not of this government's making. They are trying to tackle it. I think they're making some of the right choices. They need to go significantly further in most of those areas. You talk about the border situation, for example. I think it is a source of hope that Shabana Mahmood, as our new Home Secretary, is he's talking about very seriously about changes to human rights legislation, the one in, one out deal. All of these things that
indefinite leave to remain
so far to deal with it, I don't think are sufficient. But I do recognise how difficult it is for my friends and colleagues to govern, and I want to push them to go further and faster, rather than saying that they are themselves the problem, which I don't think is true.
The truth is that I'm not tribal, Lord Walney, and I'd like this government to succeed because it matters to my viewers and listeners. For example, if the Chancellor had rolled out a set of policies on Wednesday that were business friendly, what you would see is a downward correction in unemployment. If she'd gone for pro-growth policies, which is creating a business-friendly environment, which means getting rid of red tape, scrapping the entire worker rights package, then what you've got is a virtuous circle. But my viewers and listeners now feel that they are in a doom loop. And this is not to do with global headwinds and the situation across the world. This is down to policies from this government.
Yeah, it is the stagnation of the economy is something that the government inherited. That's absolutely true. But look, yes, I want to see as well more done to kickstart that.
It's not going to happen, though, is it, Lord Walney?
As it happens, I think that the news overnight that the government is rethinking on what has been a clear manifesto promise for a long time, which I've been deeply concerned about for a long time, the tightening up of employment legislation that would have made it probably more difficult for people to take the step of hiring more workers and growing jobs in the economy. They have stepped back.
Right, so Lord Walney, the only good thing they've done is scrap one of their policies. What does that tell you?
It is important that they listen to business. And look, I think ultimately Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves and all of this government know that their future is bound up in whether the economy can start growing again, whether people start feeling more benefit from the jobs that they go and do every day to work hard to try to make a living. That is not happening. Working people in Britain have been for a long time, for many years, under the cosh in this country. They know, Keir and Rachel, that they've got to deliver this. Several of the choices that they made in this budget, difficult they were, I think are troubling on that. But sooner or later, there is going to be a moment of reckoning on this, and I very much hope it's going to come when they manage to turn the economy around. But that has got to be the priority for this government, and it will be all eyes, I think, on economic progress over the coming months to see whether we can get this country back into the mode of actually growing and creating jobs and creating wealth and giving us the base to be able to defend ourselves properly and to be able to give people the living standards that they deserve.
Most definitely. But I know your record, Lord Walney. I know what you stand for. and you are a moderate social democratic voice in this country with a strong record of principle, the balance of pro-business, but also taking care of the weakest in our society, investing in public services. We won't get any of that from the current Chancellor and her plans for the next 12 months. I'm not sure, knowing your record, that you'd be able to sign off on the budget that we just had. I'm not sure that you'd have stayed in the cabinet, because it will achieve all of the opposite things to which you aspire. I mean, there is no Labour agenda without national income, and that's where the growth comes from. All the measures are anti-growth.
No, all of these things are a balance. Every government, no matter what colour it has as a balance. Labour, I think in particular, grapples with, the best people in Labour, they do completely understand that you've got to be pro-business and you've got to be pro-growth. And I remember my time in government when there were just in the last Labour government, when there were these constant back and forth about all of the new benefits and rights that people wanted to bring in, the progress which really would make a difference to people's lives, set against the fact that that has got to be done in a way that keeps the economy growing. Now, added to that basic tension, now you've got the parlous situation that the country is in with the financial markets, and that creates this three-way tug of war for Rachel. I do not envy her job. I would have made different choices at this budget, but I do know that she, in her heart, understands that she's got to prioritise growth. And I think that part of this that's been less spoken about in this budget is that there needs to be a greater level of stability with the financial markets, because the cost of borrowing and the potential that the cost of borrowing could suddenly spiral is a major weakness in the economy. So, I think Rachel's most ardent supporters will be saying, look, wait and see what happens on the stability of these financial markets. That could give us a stronger foundation to do in future the things that you and I, Mark, really agree in needing to do in terms of being able to prioritise jobs and growth in the economy.
Well, the largesse of the financial markets only relates to how much more money we can borrow, and surely we've maxed out the nation's credit card. So the only show in town now is whether we can actually sing for our own supper and have growth, which is something that you completely understand, Lord Walney. And I remember from the Blair years that Tony Blair and Gordon Brown absolutely prioritised small and medium-sized enterprises. They actually continued the legacy of Thatcherism, really, with a very socially mobile, aspirational economy. And Gordon Brown in particular love-bombed the City of London because he saw the national income that came from it. We've got quite a different administration in power now, don't we? And following Dolan's dispatch, which of the things that I outlined are not dangerous, such as net zero, which threatens our energy supply and makes life a misery for not just industry, but my viewers and listeners heating their homes? What aspect of open borders is not dangerous, given the fact that illegal immigration has increased under Keir Starmer? What aspect of not living within our means and being vulnerable to an economic shock on the part of the Chancellor Rachel Reeves is not dangerous? Which of those things are not dangerous?
All of.
Do you want to get a coffee and have a think about it?
Yeah, I wasn't sure whether you were being rhetorical there or you were bringing me.
It was a second Dolan's dispatch. But I know you agree with me, Lord Walney. Why don't you just admit it?
No, look,
we're on the same hymn sheet.
I agree. I absolutely agree with you that all of these things are a problem. I have to say that I think commentators like you were not necessarily singing the praises of Tony Blair and Gordon Brown's government.
Well, full disclosure. Full disclosure. I'm afraid I voted for New Labour.
Did you,
yeah.
Mark?
Yeah,
well, thank you very much.
Talk about buyer's regret.
I hope we may one day be able to get you back. Look, this was
never say never.
Inevitably, this was clearly a budget that that appealed more, that felt more like the old Labour of our country's tradition, and
1970s.
That's my tradition as well, but I think we do agree on this, although you assign a level of sometimes ill motives to this government, which I think they have the best motives, and I think your assessment of the doom, inevitability of doom of this country is different to mine. I think you are right in the sense that absolutely all of this is going to fail unless we can sort out the doom loop the economy is in, and that means prioritizing growth. And it would have meant for me saying to Labour backbenchers who understandably wanted the measure of the two-child cap on benefit to be removed, to say actually no, this is not the priority for the country at the moment, and we have to grow our economy, and that is the best way ultimately to do the right thing by those families that you care about.
Definitely. Look, you're a busy man. We know you have to run. Just very briefly, if you can, Lord Walney. I mean, I'm obviously hopeful that things will turn around and that somehow this budget produces excellent growth. And come back on the show and you're so welcome to say, I told you so, right? I am a host that's willing to be contradicted and be proved wrong. I've made mistakes in the past, such as voting Labour. So, you know, no one's perfect. I'm only pulling your leg. But here's just quickly looking at some of the policies. So the hike in the minimum wage, Resolution Foundation have suggested that will impact job opportunities for young people. It's approaching 1 million young people now who are out of work. Similarly, public sector payouts are going to fuel inflation, something that Rachel Reeves barely mentioned, which is a tax on everyone, especially the poor. And her policies will be very inflationary. And then you've got the Tony Blair Institute and again the Resolution Foundation, one of Labour's favourite think tanks, saying that the workers' rights package is going to kill jobs and destroy growth. So I'm not the only one that thinks this programme is dangerous.
So on workers' rights, they have listened, and the removal of day one unfair dismissal rights is a major change. Yes, they have to explain why they weren't listening, why it took them so long to listen. But I think probably they have recognised the parlous state that businesses are in, and they want to do something about it. And it's very good that they have done so. On the minimum wage, this is always a difficult balance. I am really interested that the Resolution Foundation came out in a way that challenged this rise. But we do want more people in this country to have the incentive, more young people to have the incentive to go to work. We want them to be able to keep more of their income.
What's the point if they can't get a job? What's the point in good wages if you can't get a job?
Look, that is always has been the balance forever, whenever you've been setting wages, and it was the criticism, it's the reason why the Conservatives opposed a minimum wage in the first place. I think they were wrong to oppose it, but I hope that the warnings from the Resolution Foundation on the rise in the minimum wage don't come to pass, because it will make a difference for a lot of younger people in particular who are struggling with meeting the cost of living. So yeah, look, let's hope I can come on again in a few months and actually we'll all agree that Rachel, despite our misgivings, made brilliant choices, and long may she continue as Chancellor of the Exchequer.
Lord Walney, we always love having you on the show. Do join us again in the near future when your schedule allows. Lord Walney is the former government advisor on political violence and disruption and a former Labour MP. I'd rather have Lord Walney's budget than Rachel Reeves. What do you think? But Lord Walney there, this government is not dangerous. Your response, please, 03444 499 1000. This show's all about opinions. What's yours? That's next.
Big news coming this December. Our talkTV app is moving to the Talk app. You can watch, catch up and listen to all your favourite shows and podcasts anytime, anywhere, all on the Talk app. From Monday, 1st of December, the talkTV app will no longer exist, so don't miss out. So head over to your App Store or Google Play and search Talk now.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
9:29. This is Morning Glory. Thanks for my amazing team today. Alicia, Amy, and the fantastic Damien and Tommy as well on the phone. So get your calls in 03444991000. Let's have a look at the impact on the housing market of Wednesday's budget, which appears to be bad news, not just for those living in large, valuable houses, but for renters too. Ed Mead is an independent property expert. Good morning, Ed.
Good morning, Mark.
Lovely to have you on Morning Glory. Yes, a lot of focus on the mansion tax, but ordinary renters may pay the price because life just got difficult for landlords.
Well, it did. They're having an extra 2% shoved on their national insurance contributions, and some people may argue that that sort of income perhaps should have had national insurance charges on it as it was. But of course, it's layered on top for landlords with the most extraordinary attack in terms of taxes, allowances being taken away, compliance rules, etc., etc. And I don't think this government, or perhaps any recent government, has quite understood what an enormous place the PRS has in the renters' economy. I mean, it's every bit as big as the assisted housing sector. And to put people off being in the sector, which is definitely happening and will happen more after the recent changes or yesterday's changes, that's only going to create one problem for renters. And if they're having to pay more for national insurance charges and other charges, what's going to happen? It means rents will go up. So it seems pretty counterproductive to me.
Because landlords will pass on extra costs to their tenants. That's the problem, isn't it? And then, of course, the other problem you've got, if you create a hostile environment for small landlords, I'm not talking about someone that's got 200 properties like, who's that ex-Liverpool player? I've forgotten his name now. There's an ex-striker at Liverpool.
Yes, Phil, which one it was.
It'll come to me now, but I did a skiing show with him. But anyhow, we're not talking about mega landlords here, but, you know, someone that's got maybe one or two properties, it's their pension. If you create a hostile environment, they will sell up. Now, can you explain why that's a problem for renters?
Well, yes, I mean, it's to do with stock levels. I mean, the vast majority of people the vast majority of landlords are small, you know, they literally own one property. And a lot of those are accidental landlords who perhaps when they got married, they decided to keep one of the properties and rent it out for the future or whatever it was. For those sort of people now, there's every chance that the amount of money that they're making, and I mean, let's just get this right. People think landlords are in this to make money. They're not. The reason the vast majority of people rent their properties out is just to maintain them, to keep the fabric of the building sorted out until they want it back. The problem with this is that they're now actually not just treading water, a lot of landlords, it's costing them money. So they're thinking, well, why on earth would I keep this property if I'm actually having to pay it every year and I'm unlikely to use it for the next 20 years? So therefore they're selling it. So supply goes down, demand isn't going anywhere, it's going up if anything. So it's simple economics.
And of course we have George Osborne to blame for the beginning of this war on tenants, don't we? War on landlords.
Well, it is extraordinary the way it was a Tory government that decided they wanted to do it. You know, in the old days, you got allowances against wear and tear, for instance. So if the property was being worn out and you were keeping it and you were providing property for private tenants to live in, you would get an allowance, for instance, for that. He took that away. He decided that people who were in the high rate of tax bracket wouldn't get relief on the tax on their mortgage payments. They wouldn't get
it was the most extraordinary setup, and added to which it was also a Tory government, let's not forget, that introduced these changes, these annualised taxes on envelope dwellings. So they decided they didn't like people owning properties in company names, high value properties, and they put taxes on those. So we talk about the mansion tax, but actually these aid-heads, some people who are living in £2 million properties and above are paying £35,000 a year just to have it in a company name. So there has been a lot of raids from governments other than just the current one.
Why does it matter, Ed, to my viewers and listeners, that somebody living in a property worth £2 million will pay a bit more tax?
Well, that's a very good question, Mark, and it's a question, having been working in that market for over 40 years, I can tell you right now, a lot of people have this arse about face. They don't understand that high value market. It's an aspirational market. People don't move into a big, call it a mansion, what a hideous political word that is, but people don't move in.
A large valuable property.
A large valuable property because they need it. They do it because they want to live in a bigger property. And people who buy those sort of properties spend an enormous amount of money in their local economy. It's a hugely important part of the property market at the top end. So people move out of relatively normal properties to move into expensive and big properties because they want to, as I say, not because they need to. So if you turn the tap off at that end of the market, it has an effect all the way down, firstly. And secondly, it stops those people. I mean, there was a very good piece of research done by the FT about 10 years ago when George Osborne was talking about introducing these aid-heads and stopping people buying in their own names, about how much people spend when they buy a £5 million property. And in the first 5 years, they'll spend roughly £1 million in their local economy. Because they employ people to paint things, they buy new bits and pieces, white goods, carpets and everything else. You turn that piece of the market off, which you're doing, especially now if you're going to be charging people, it's all very well to say that someone who lives in a £5 million house isn't going to worry about spending £7,500 per annum. That's out of after-tax income, so that's 15 grand. That's 15 grand that probably won't be going into the local economy. So this is a thoroughly regressive move, and I don't think people understand how important the top end of the property market is. It's not a normal market, but it's an incredibly important part of UK property PLC.
It is central to our economy, to our prosperity, to aspiration, to social mobility, Ed. And by the way, here's the kicker. This war on those living in large valuable properties will bring in precious little money in relative terms, right? It's a rounding error. It's coins in the back of the sofa. Just like the war on private education will bring in very little once you've got the overall costs. Just like the inheritance tax raid on the farmers will bring in very little. This is political, not economic.
It's quite definitely political dogma. I think people need to understand here the rounding error, as you call it. They're talking about it bringing in £400 million by the end of this Parliament, £400 million a year. The NHS costs £200 billion a year. That's why you're talking about this being a rounding error. Yet the damages it causes, it's completely unenforceable. When you have properties at that level can have a difference of 30 to 40%, depending on the condition of them. So how are these revaluations going to be done? You can't do it by drive-by. Someone's going to have to go in. That's going to cost a lot of money. For someone to go and do an official valuation, an insured red book valuation on these properties, is going to cost hundreds, if not thousands of pounds per property.
And it will be appealed.
There are hundreds of thousands of them.
And they'll be appealed.
Well, of course they will. I mean, people are going to say that's just rubbish, and you're going to find bunching underneath these targets. It just creates a ridiculous artificial situation, which is unnecessary and will detract from UK property PLC, which is probably worth as much as 10% of UK PLC. People forget that.
Yeah, the housing market is set to be absolutely clobbered by Rachel Reeves. If I were you, I would buy a tent, head to Amazon.com or maybe Millets and get yourself some kind of improvised accommodation solution, because the housing market is absolutely under attack. Ed, really enjoyed our chat. Look forward to speaking soon. Ed Mead is an independent property expert who explains that this war on those living in large valuable properties is actually bad news for all of us. Well, it's the same as the demonisation of the super rich, isn't it? They pay the taxes. If they go, folks, you and I have got to cover the cost. It makes no sense. Next up, as a result of Rachel Reeves' budget, are we heading for an economic crash? That's next.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
9:40 Morning Glory. Thanks for your calls, texts and messages. A big conversation we've had today. Is this government dangerous? Many of you take the view it absolutely is. Kevin says it's suicidal. Well, what are the chances now of a serious economic shock? Could Rachel Reeves' budget pave the way for some kind of crash and an emergency budget? Well, let's speak to someone who's always across matters economic. It's the former Apprentice star entrepreneur and commentator Lubna Zaidi. Good morning, Lubna.
Morning.
Have we exposed ourselves to economic peril with Wednesday's budget?
Oh my God, the whole thing is an absolute disaster. And I would like to suggest that the Labour government, especially Keir Starmer, Angela Rayner, and Rachel Reeves read Donald Trump's book, The Art of the Deal. Now, last time I came on, I accused the government of raping the country, and now I'm accusing them of raping businesses. So I think this whole thing is a mess. I don't trust these people at all. I don't know what they're doing, and I fear for the direction of this country. A lot of good people are going to end up leaving. Businesses already scared. I think this whole thing is a shambles.
Indeed. Did you see it coming? Did any aspect of the budget surprise you, Lubna?
Just the U-turns over U-turns, U-turns to cover up previous U-turns. The whole thing was a mess. I mean, yeah, it's been a clown show, and we have become the laughing stock of the whole entire world, whether it comes to fake asylum seekers, whether it comes to, benefits Britain. The whole thing is a joke. So I would say that I don't know how long this clown show will continue, but it's very embarrassing for every citizen here, especially hardworking taxpayers. I would say we have been ripped off completely. Businesses are being raped, and why on earth would anyone want to continue living in this country? I really do hope that the government comes to its senses and listens to its people and the businesses who are actually running the country. Because if they don't, I don't know what's going to happen in the future.
Do you hesitate to use the R word, given the egregious nature of that actual crime? Do you think you're overstating it?
I appreciate, of course, it's usually used in a sexual term, and I appreciate it's not going to be for everyone. However, I would say the way the government has treated the country in that context, this is exactly how I feel, though. This is exactly my sentiments, and I appreciate it may not be shared by other people. But this is exactly, I mean, I can't think of a better way of describing this. And I know that a lot of people have actually agreed with me. So when they saw me come on last time, they said, okay, it is quite crude, but you know what? You completely are describing exactly how I'm feeling. So it's not going to be for everyone, but I stand by what I've just said here, sadly.
And what are the chances of major serious economic exposure for this country? Could a crash happen, given the fact that the cost of borrowing is very high, inflation is stubbornly high, growth is down? This doesn't end well, does it? The basic laws of economics suggest we're very exposed.
We are very exposed, and I would say instead of creating an environment that encourages productivity, encourages businesses to, give people jobs, and encourages the right behavior, sadly, because we are rewarding the wrong type of behavior continuously. It's not the first time we've done this. We continuously are doing that. Where are we expecting to head? So I do hope and pray that, we don't end up in a situation where we do experience a crash. But we are reaching very closely a tipping point, and something needs to happen very fast to course correct, because if we don't, that is a direction it seems that we are heading in.
Well, it feels like a Ponzi scheme, doesn't it? It feels like the worst work of Bernard Madoff, the disgraced New York financier. With low growth and an ever-expanding welfare state, it's likely the Chancellor will be back for more next year.
Oh my God, I hope not, because look, this whole thing is a mess, and I would say they need to listen to the businesses as well. The businesses are the ones where the growth will come from. They are the ones who are actually running the country. And when the CBI have said that the changes that the government are suggesting, these are going to be extremely damaging, I think that the government would be, they should listen to these people who know what they're doing. And sadly, they continuously not. So what should citizens do? What should businesses do in the event that the government is not listening? Well, the only choice that they would have left is to either leave the country or sadly engage in dodgy activities like cash in hand jobs that a lot of people end up doing, because they end up saving tax and it's less of a hassle. So we're going to encourage the wrong types of behaviors. So yeah, I'm extremely concerned for the country, and I do not trust this government, especially because when they keep lying in their manifesto and what they end up doing is something completely different. I mean, can we actually trust their word at all? So yeah, it's a shambles.
Indeed. And you are a young entrepreneur with big ambitions for the future. Of course, you starred in The Apprentice, which features Lord Sugar. A worrying headline today in the Telegraph, Lubna, which is a net 110,000 British people aged 16 to 34 emigrated in the year to March. Almost half of the people now responsible for the net migration statistics are from overseas. So our youngest and brightest are leaving.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I mean, why should they stay? What incentive is for them to stay? Like, the government keeps rewarding the wrong types of behaviours. They're not seeing a future here, because this is not now about, you know, just Britain itself. We are competing against other countries who are offering people more. Naturally, the skilled people, the people who can add value, if they have an idea, why should they implement that idea in Britain when they have alternative options that may be better for them financially? So, you know, we have ourselves to blame for that.
Brilliant. Lumna, we always enjoy your company, and thank you for your unapologetic verdict on Rachel Reeves's budget. Look forward to speaking again in the near future. Lubna Zaidi is a former Apprentice star and commentator who makes no apology for her language about the state of the country and the policies of this current administration. Is this Labour government dangerous? Your calls next.
Big news coming this December. Our talkTV app is moving to the Talk app. You can watch, catch up and listen to all your favourite shows and podcasts anytime, anywhere, all on the Talk app. From Monday, 1st of December, the talkTV app will no longer exist, so don't miss out. So head over to your App Store or Google Play and search Talk now.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Morning glory, Mark Dolan with you until 10 a.m. Alex Phillips is up next. Looking forward to her show. Lots to go at in terms of the news agenda. I'm back tomorrow for Weekend Breakfast, 6 till 10. Do join me. Big game, big names, big guests, of course, Dolan's Dispatch and much besides. But the question today, is this government dangerous? Paul is in Southampton. Hello, Paul.
Hello, Mark. How are you doing?
Very well indeed. I had Lord Walney on earlier, who's a former Labour MP. He said that I've exaggerated, that Labour is not dangerous at all. They're doing their best. What do you think?
Well, I mean, everybody knows Labour are incompetent, but I would blame the civil service. I think the civil service are a danger to this country because of their liberalism. They just seem to not know anything about doing anything.
Yeah.
We've got over 70,000 illegal migrants, and they don't know where they are.
It's quite troubling, and they've just, Rupert Lowe revealed this morning that 700 people, 700 foreign criminals earmarked for deportation have absconded, Paul. If that's not dangerous, I don't know what is.
Well, that's it. I mean, the Conservatives, 14 years of laziness. I mean, they caused a lot of the problems that we have. The problem is this Labour government don't know how to fix things because they've got no experience of fixing anything. They've just done their think tanks and their little committees, but they've never really ran anything. And this is the problem. And I think is it Mark Simon Case, the bloke that's just retired as head of civil service?
Yeah.
He said he tried to change the civil service, but he couldn't. Now, if you're in charge and you can't change a system, then what is wrong? Is the person wrong, or is it the system?
Well, it's a bit like the BBC, Paul, isn't it? You can get rid of the Director General, but you've got all those young activist producers and journalists in the corporation who are going to be biased.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's government run. You've got DEI should be banned, Stonewall should be banned.
Yeah.
You know, all this stuff, all this woke ideologies need to be removed from the government to let them operate. But again, overpaid, underworked, and we're paying for it.
Stay with me, Paul. We'll catch up on a couple of messages. First of all, Ian is very, very positive about the idea of bringing back national service for a bit of discipline. He said, get off your backside and earn your benefits if you fit. Apprenticeships are a requirement. Community work, cleaning, painting the streets. Get our national and personal pride back. This is what we need, is a cultural change in the country, isn't it? You mentioned the civil service, but just in our society, the work ethic, Paul. Get up in the morning, set your alarm, be productive.
Yeah, well, but then you have to stop with how are you going to make these people do it? How are you going to make sure that if they're painting fence posts and cutting the grass, are they going to do a good job?
Well, here's a point. What about this, Paul? They don't get benefits unless they do it.
Yeah, but civil service, again, they'll still pay it, and we have a government that can't change things.
Do you think, therefore, do you worry that even if, for example, Reform UK win the election, that they'll be powerless to change the country?
I'm hoping that when Farage gets in, with Danny Kruger doing what he's saying, that they've got the nads to do it.
Yeah.
I personally would go in and sack the top 10 people in every single government department, because they're the people that cause the problems. The people on the front line, the people that sit behind the desk and are public facing, they're not going to go on strike. It's the people that make the policy right at the top. That is the issue that we have with the civil service, and they're all liberals. And unless we get rid of that mindset, they're all of a hive mind that, come in, don't shake the boat, and you'll get your golden handshake at the end of the day.
Paul, I wish I could give you a golden handshake. You've made a lot of sense. Have an excellent Friday. Paul in Southampton there. Good morning, Mark. The government says they want to lift children out of poverty, but what they're really doing is increasing the number of their future voters, e.g. shirking classes and immigrants who generally have much larger families. This will lead to opposition voters being outnumbered, so enabling socialist rule to continue infinitum. Ben in London says, good morning, Mark. I loved the Dolan's Dispatch. Lord Walmey, your guest, is the typical Labourite living in a world of fantasy. He thinks that feeding the children and looking after net zero, along with the the NHS, a service that spends more money on less viable things like administration and a waste service. There will be no growth from this government for the foreseeable future. This Labour Party has failed miserably. Tom is in Reigate. Good morning, Tom.
Yes, good morning, Mark. So I'm very happy to talk to you, but I do miss young Michael Graham.
Oh, well, listen, I understand that. I do. Tom, listen, you're talking about a gentleman that's had a long history on this channel. He's a friend of mine, and I hear you.
Man, right, now let's get this out of the way. This Lord, what's his name?
Lord Walney, former Labour MP.
What an absolute brain-dead idiot that man is, like all Labour politicians. This government, when it took over, it scrapped that everything. This country, with all the net zero rubbish, all the oil and gas we're not going to have, this country will be on its knees, I don't reckon, before the end of this Parliament. So God help us all. That's all I can say for this country, because I'm 70, I'm still driving a lorry all around the country because I can't afford to live without not working. So thanks very much, Labour, but I'd like them to all disappear. The King should have known the government, mate, call for a general election and get that rubbish out.
And how do we fix the problems, Tom, and who fixes it?
Well, I'd say reform, but I don't know about reform. I like that Rupert Lowe from Yarmouth and Richard Tice. They're a little bit more straight talking. They're not racist. They just say what state this country's in, and they want to save this country like all of us. But if they don't, within the 4 years or 3 years what's left with these muppets, we'll be down the tube, mate. Absolutely dumped.
Listen, Tom, I'm so grateful for your call, and I'm very grateful for your comments about Mike as well, because let me tell you, I've known him for many years, and I wish him every success. It's the media, folks, isn't it? It's always unpredictable. 9:57. It's been a joy, and I'm delighted to say it's going to get better because Alex Phillips is in the house. Hello, Alex.
Check out those cufflinks you've got going on. Bling, bling, baby.
Yeah, well, they'll soon be on eBay because of Rachel's budget.
Yeah, right. Everything will be. Vinted is going to be making a fortune, isn't it?
Yeah, I might have to sell my body at some point. I don't know what I'll get.
Well, you haven't got much of it. It's very long, but there's not much flesh on it. So
say that to all the boys.
It depends what the buyer wants to do.
No, Alex, you'll get us cancelled as well. Listen, what's happening? You got a fair bee in your bonnet this morning, haven't you?
I've always got a bee in my bonnet.
You look furious.
When do I? Do I? When do I not?
Oh my God!
Do you know what is so strange? So this morning I was sitting on the bus.
Yeah.
And I'd been listening to the Today programme, which is always some form of, morning self-flagellation.
I know.
And I thought to myself, there's a phrase that the Labour Party keeps saying that is really getting on my goat, massively, which is, it's the right thing to do. Yes. Have you noticed this?
Yes,
it's the right thing to do. And I'm like, bog off, Starmer, you ain't God. I'm sitting there with my Bible like, this is the right thing to do. You, however, are a politician. Stay in your lane. And the weird thing is, I come in and Ted, the producer's like, oh, have you seen this that Kemi Badenoch has written, basically saying that making people who work pay for people who don't work is the unchristian thing to do. And I'm like, here we go. It's that sort of relationship between politics and morality.
Most definitely. I mean, I've been asking my viewers and listeners today, our